Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Three Pointer Podcast. I'm Brett Clemmer, your host, and with me, I keep doing that every fucking episode, man. And with me, as always, well, you know what? When you're drinking teas.
Had a couple drinks.
And with me, as always, are the guys, Brendan, Justin, and my boy Pookers. Pookers, what's going on today, buddy?
Oh, nothing. Just got off work. Had slammed a few before I got on for the shower, and I'm ready to go.
Fair enough.
Nice. Bridge, what's going on, feller?
Just recovering from the night before. Been a rough one, so.
Depending on how long this goes, we might tell that story later.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to.
Might have to embellish it a little bit.
And Brendan, what's going on?
I'm feeling pretty encouraged, man. You know, guys just learning their words already in recovery mode.
Can I point something out really fast before we start?
Sure.
Brendan, for those of you who aren't watching, Brendan is wearing a New York City t-shirt or hoodie rather, and a New York City hat.
Yeah,
I think that's really funny. And I think that's really funny.
I didn't even realize
New York fan all around.
Yeah, I went there one time. Oh yeah. Hey, I told you I was on the Knicks bandwagon this year because I loved watching playoffs.
That lasted a whole long time.
Yeah, we all know.
Yeah, really. Yeah. A glorious 5 games.
Yeah. Good. I mean, good for the Knicks. At least they got in. Been a while. Been a minute for them.
Yeah, true enough.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start it off as always with Brennan giving us some news. Nothing crazy, I don't think, but I mean, there's a little bit of crazy stuff.
There's some stuff to grasp at for sure, and some stuff that we can certainly speculate about.
Why don't you start her off?
Yeah,
what do we want to go for first?
That was your cue.
So let's start off with some player rumblings. You guys know Damian Lillard has been labeled as unhappy in the Portland Trailblazers organization, but another one we've got coming out is Zion Williamson. So recently departed head coach Stan Van Gundy came out saying Zion is no coach killer after reports that Zion and some family members had been unhappy with both the Pelicans and Van Gundy. Members of his family considered Van Gundy to be too rigid and demanding. However, Van Gundy countered this point saying that he never had any of those feelings expressed to him by Zion or anyone else. What do you guys think? Because I think for me, I feel like it's more and more often we're seeing with these young star players that they're on a more expedited timeline, more and more so pressuring their organizations to win. But Zion's in his second year. I think you don't really have any power at that point, right?
No, and he hasn't really, not that he hasn't played really well, but he hasn't really done much. He hasn't done anything overly.
He didn't get his team to the playoffs.
No, he's not not yet. He hasn't
done anything special yet.
But it's only in year 2. I think that's what Beck
absolutely
means. He doesn't have any power, and I don't think unless he was genuinely being mistreated, which I don't think he was. I don't think he played a whole hell of a lot of minutes. To be honest, he would have probably had a lot better stats if he played more minutes.
I think his power comes from him being the anointed franchise savior for the Pelicans, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but has he really been? I would argue Brandon Ingram has done just as much as Zion has for that team, in my opinion.
I would say that roster looks very good for the future, but the problem is that you're getting things out about how Zion wants to win right now. And look, this guy's hardly even had a step in the league at this point.
Yeah,
I don't even know if he's played 82 games yet.
Someone needs to knock him off his block a little bit. Players that have played their careers on that started with shitty teams and got to free agency and tried, they deserve it. They deserve to be I want to go here, I want to get traded here, whatever. But you've been in the league for 2 years and your team honestly hasn't been that bad considering what the conference they play in and the expectations they had. They haven't been terrible. There's a lot of potential there. You don't just get to go, oh, and now I want to go to the fucking Clippers or the fucking Bucks or some shit like that.
How's that fair to your organization?
Yeah, fuck. You should not. The players that should have that much power are players that have done enough for their franchise.
The top 10 players in the league.
Not even. I would say just players that have done enough for their franchises. Damian Lillard's a great example. Yeah. He has done his time. He's Kemba Walker in Charlotte. even another good example. Like he did his time. He deserved to go somewhere where he deserved to try to win.
Yeah, I mean, even like guys like James Harden or Chris Paul or guys like that who just put in the hours, put in the work, and earn some status within the organization from
Literally.
like actually playing. Like, no offense to Zion, he's going to be a great player, but some guys who have actually taken the franchise in certain directions rather than just offered them a glimpse into what it could be, right?
Yeah.
Now
he's not at the point yet where he's like, okay, well, I've dragged this team into the playoffs or drag them into being a decent team.
Not at all. I don't even
like the team around him isn't a bad team.
No, I think it's incomplete, if you know what I mean. Like they're stuck between two timelines. They've got Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams on middling contracts. Was trading away Drew Holiday probably the best move for them now? No, absolutely not. I mean, but then again, you get offered 3 first-round picks from the Bucks, whose franchise superstar Giannis wasn't sure if he was going to stay.
You take that chance.
Enticing. Yeah,
you take that
chance.
Yeah, you kind of have
because you never know what the Bucks are going to do in the next 2 years, right? So their first-round picks. You take that chance.
Yeah.
No, and you never know what could happen. Like we've seen it this year, injuries can be are a very real thing and can have a pretty devastating effect.
I think this has been the worst season for injuries.
It definitely, and it's no question
especially
that it's because it was the shortest offseason ever.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole reason. Like that's literally players have been calling that since like the NBA announced it was going to start this early. It's too early. Absolutely. Players are going to get injured, and now here we are in crunch time, and there's a list of 12 all-star players that are injured right now and not playing, or didn't play games at 100% and got beat out because
in the playoffs.
Literally like.
And a lot of these players
were the most, right?
I mean, you got LeBron, you got Harden, like these guys weren't at their full capabilities playing.
AD either.
AD was out.
CP hasn't been at 100% since the fucking second round. His shoulders been bothering him all fucking all playoffs.
CP, I feel like the Suns are the most unaffected team
because Devin Booker hasn't got injured yet.
Yeah.
That's why. And do you want to know why? Because the Suns got one of the longest off seasons of play teams that went to the bubble. The Hawks the same. They both got way bigger fucking off seasons than a lot of these teams that are getting beat out because they went deep in the playoffs last year. And they're two
of the more healthy teams. I mean, out of the teams remaining,
it's
not two of them are kind of surprising.
It's not rocket appliances. It's literally because that team had more rest time and more time to recuperate, and the other teams didn't, and that's why the players are getting injured now, and you know what I mean? Like
absolutely, I totally agree. And go ahead, Beck.
Yeah, Shaq recently offered his perspective on that short offseason because, like, I think we talked about it before how LeBron was criticizing the short offseason, how it was contributing to injuries. And he actually has a very, very legitimate claim to that because he did say that a large portion of All-Stars were missing more games due to the workload this year. And it's actually very true. And apparently 19% of all All-Stars that were in the game this year, they have missed 19% of their possible games, which is the highest percent in NBA history.
Yeah,
that's insane.
That's crazy.
And it's not close.
And then you think about teams like the Phoenix Suns and the Utah Jazz. They're amazing teams. They also got way longer off seasons than most of the other teams. They have a way deeper team, and everybody's healthy. So that's when it gets down to games in the regular season, and the other team has guys that are healthier and have more energy off the bench when your star players are taking less minutes because they're trying to rest for the playoffs. That's what it creates. And that's not to say that they're not good teams, but it's just another
the top talent is a little bit less.
Exactly.
So when you think about it that way and you put it that way and you put the number out there, that goes to about 14 games per All-Star. And then you think about the times in which these guys are missing games, and you think about the Lakers specifically, Luke. I know you're a Lakers fan, but you think about the time in which LeBron and AD missed games, time in the season where things got more intense and got more condensed. You think about that. You think about, what am I thinking? Trae Young now getting injured. We have Giannis getting injured, Kawhi getting injured. Like times where these postseason basketball is ramping up on these guys, and these guys haven't had a chance to rest because every game in the regular season meant more.
Exactly.
Because it was shorter. And now we had this play-in tournament too. As great as an idea as I think it is financially, and I think it will stay, that is more of a burden on players because they have to play playoff basketball earlier. It's the truth.
And they have to start training for playoff basketball earlier too. Like it's
well, and it's also just the way guys train these days. It's just so much.
You have to because that's what everyone else is doing. Like you have to work every inch, like parts of your body that they didn't even know to play, like to use like 20 years ago. Like
yeah,
I don't think you see too many NBA players hitting squat racks and bench press as much as you used to. Like that's kind of
certainly not in the regular season. Like that's for sure. These guys are working out to just maintain their body's health more than anything.
Because they're putting in like the top players are putting in at least 35 minutes a game, like probably every other night when it averages out. Like it's fucked up. That's a lot of energy to put in, especially if you're a top guy who's taking a lot of shots and playing a lot of defense. Like that's a lot of fucking energy to use like every single day.
Yeah, and not a basketball example. This is kind of a hockey example, but you saw it in the NHL too with Jonathan Toews. He was totally just exhausted. His body was exhausted.
He was,
and he couldn't keep up with it. That's what he said. He said he needed time off because his immune system couldn't handle the workload that was being put on him. And I mean, it's the same for basketball. It's the same for football. It's the same for everything. I think football is a little bit different because these guys aren't playing more than once a week.
Football's a very short season, and it's a lot more practice than it is playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a lot more spread out too.
Yeah, it's a lot different of a sport than most of these sports.
So that's kind of the exception, obviously, of the MLB, which is just not really an injury-prone sport.
No, but that season is so long. Bro.
It's incredibly long.
I don't understand how those teams do it, man. That's like how many games do they play a season? Like it's more
162.
Like, oh my god, that is like it doesn't take a lot of energy, sure, but fuck me, that is a lot.
And there's an off season.
Yeah, like
so think about how compact these schedules are. There's teams that play
they get maybe one off day a week.
Yeah, and they have guys that are literally playing double headers. Like, I mean, that's not possible in any other sport.
Like they'll play a game until like 10 o'clock the night before, and then they'll play a game at like 1 p.m. the next day. Like
sometimes plus there's travel in between that, but some days they'll play 2 games 3 hours apart.
Literally, they have to hop on a plane after a game and then land somewhere else and like get like 4 hours of sleep and wake up and go hit. Like, it's fucked, man.
So that's all of that is very true, but Shaq offered an interesting counterpoint to what LeBron was saying. And he said, when you're living in a world where 40 million people have been laid off and I'm making 200 million, referencing maybe an NBA basketball player, you won't get any complaining from me. So do you think there's a little bit more? That. Yeah. So
but I mean, like,
that's a real world perspective.
That's a really easy thing to say when you're not a player, though. That's a really easy thing to say as someone looking into the situation. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with that.
Shaq's never had to deal with a season like this or anything like this his whole playing career. Like,
I think what he's trying to get at though is that like I get LeBron like complaining because I get it personally, but there's other people who have it worse. Like you just can't be thinking from a first person perspective.
But that's not news.
The other aspect of it is that this is basketball, so it's not so much that I'm worried about the players. I'm worried about the product that's being put out for the fans, because when you have and for the NBA, like it's almost like they're doing too much. They're not doing enough to protect the players that make them money.
They care more about putting money in their pocket than they do actually fucking protecting their players.
Long term, this could hurt the NBA.
That's what I mean.
Some star players are going to get injured. Like, could you imagine if Giannis went out for 2 years?
Like,
can you imagine someone goes out for the rest of their career?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
well, but think about it. If you have a guy like Giannis who's 7 foot, 250 pounds, and he suffers an ACL injury, his body is never going to be the same because his knees will never
especially
be able to
with how physically dominant he is. He is the only
player. He'll never get to 100% again.
Because you know how hard it is to be that physically dominant in a professional sport. Like,
and if you ask, like, and I think that you always make a really good point that the fans are one of the most important things about the game, because without the fans, there's no game. So like, I think that you're 100% right. Like, I would rather see all these players play again next season and be fresh than have a longer off season than see basketball sooner. Like, it was nice to have it come back so soon, but I haven't enjoyed the product. Like I've enjoyed the playoffs have been half decent, but I hate watching games that that
if one player was there.
There's an asterisk. Mm-hmm. There's an asterisk.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it to an extent. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no matter who wins this championship, there's going to be an asterisk beside their name.
So
because at the end of the day, it's
before we go into the topic of the asterisk, just some quick news. The Indiana Pacers are bringing Lloyd Pierce on to be Rick Carlisle's top assistant. He went 63 and 120 in Atlanta as a head coach. They also had a trade proposal for Ben Simmons knocked down. It was Malcolm Brogdon and a first. And then the LA Lakers are close to adding Dave Fizdale to Frank Vogel's staff to replace Jason Kidd. Fizdale went 71 and 134 as head coach of the Memphis Grizzlies and then the New York Knicks. The reason I want to and I apologize for hopping in there, just wanted to get those in before we go into this, is the topic of the asterisk, because that is going to hang over this season. And arguably it may have hung over last season too. But I think more so this year with the guys that we've seen out. But going into that, after 16 years and 5 different teams, Chris Paul is going to play in the NBA Finals for the first time in his career with the Phoenix Suns.
And as much as I hate to see it, I'm happy for Chris Paul. But
yeah.
But if Giannis comes back, they're not winning that series. I'm sorry. Well, if he comes back at a near 100%.
Yeah, I think any version of Giannis, I'll get into it too. Giannis, fortunately, only suffered a hyperextended knee. I know that still sounds bad.
There was no damage, though.
There was no structural damage.
Which is really good.
Which is fantastic for, obviously, Milwaukee, but also, we said, the long-term product of the NBA. Because that's a guy people like to watch, and if we were going to watch that guy in a torn ACL, that'd be a totally different product.
And even if the doctor tells him you can play, but your pain is gonna keep you at 65-70%, he's still gonna go play, but it's not gonna be the same, and we're all gonna know it. And it's the same thing we saw with the Lakers. It's the same thing we saw with the fucking Nuggets. It's the same thing we saw with every team. The Clippers, the same thing. It's every team who's had a player go out. We've seen that they just don't play the same. And they just can't win without their star players. And even if they're there and not at 100%, it's still not going to be the same product. And that brings back the asterisk. We're all going to know that things would have been different had it been a different circumstance.
Yeah.
So I think this answers my question best, because we had the same discussion about Milwaukee. Obviously, Atlanta, we all know that's probably a little more unexpected. And Luke, I know what I'm going to hear from you, and Justin, I think I'll hear the same thing. Is the Suns' trip to the finals deserved?
See, I don't like that word, because I think the Suns are a good team, and I think they would have been a playoff team, and I think they probably would have went to the first round, past the first round, if had everyone been full health. But if you're asking me, do I think they would be where they are right now if every team they played had been at full health? No, I don't.
And I think that was kind of the second thing I was going to ask you is, look, the Suns clearly played a championship contender and a team that deserved to be there.
Totally. All the credit to them. They played amazing. Devin Booker's been unreal.
Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing that goes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't think the Suns would come as far as they did.
Me neither.
It was a regular season. But I think they had a really good team this season, and for sure I think they would have made it past first round.
You know what?
Even second round.
They had everything, and you know what? They played a lot of teams that were plagued by injury. They were still good, and they still put up a fight to some stance. But do they beat the Lakers in they beat them in 6, right?
6, yeah. 6.
If they beat the Lakers in 6, if the Lakers are at full health and everyone's 100%, no. Do they sweep the Nuggets? Absolutely not. Absolutely. I don't even know if they beat the Clippers if everyone's
I don't think
100%.
they would beat the Clippers.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. At full strength is what we're talking about here, and I don't think so.
No.
Yeah,
they played. They
arguably
played the 3 best teams in the West when everyone is at full health and beat them all, and they all had injury troubles.
I sent a tweet out last night, to be honest, or it was last night that they beat the Clippers.
It was last
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. Yeah.
I sent out a tweet, and I basically torched the hell out of CP3. I like CP3, and I had a lot of respect for him.
Did TSN pick it up?
Yeah. No, but by the way CP3 was acting, it just pissed me off. He was taunting fans and shit. He was acting like
foul. That was such a bullshit foul. He headbutted Boogie in the fucking arm.
That's what I would have been fine with that call if it was just a foul, but it was a technical foul.
No, that was ridiculous.
And to be honest, Chris Paul played great in that game, but I lost a lot of respect for him after the game because he was talking like he was the underdog. And I get that he's been the underdog his entire career, but this playoffs has been gift wrapped for him.
Yeah, and I agree.
And I totally don't think that the Suns are there. I don't think they make it past the first round. I don't think they make it past the second round or the third round.
And now they're gonna most likely play a Milwaukee team. And if they don't have Giannis, that's just the icing on the cake.
Or an Atlanta Hawks team.
Or an Atlanta Hawks
injury too. This is gonna be the most boring playoff or NBA Finals in NBA history.
Literally the icing on the cake. That's like I've never really sat down and actually thought about that. They literally played the 3, maybe 4 best teams in the fucking NBA, and all of them lost because of injury trouble.
Yeah. So
Asterisk, man. Asterisk.
I want to go into something that someone wrote online about the Suns' trip to the NBA Finals, and it said the path to a championship for the Suns has been parted wider than the Red Sea by Moses for the exodus of the children of Israel, and that's obviously biblical, nice. But I think we get the idea. But kind of to summarize, I think if in a normal circumstance, like full regular season, if everyone's healthy, I think the Suns get to the finals. Not the finals, sorry. No. The conference semifinals. I got a little carried away there.
Yeah.
But
well, I think a lot.
Yeah, the conference semifinals, but with Denver and the 2 LAs. All of the teams they've beaten. And I want to talk about, and Luke said it perfectly, are they sweeping the Nuggets? No, not a chance in hell. Are they beating the Lakers 3 times in a row? Not a chance.
Like all 2 times away? Not a chance.
Yeah. Are they beating the Clippers by an average of 12 points per win? Absolutely not.
A chance. No. And do they beat, let's say that the Milwaukee Bucks take it tomorrow night and Giannis doesn't play for the rest of the playoffs. Presumably the Suns would win that. Do they win that if Giannis plays?
No. Because Giannis is heads and shoulders away the best player.
And no one can guard him on that Suns team. No one.
No. Aiden's had incredible playoffs. He's not there.
No. They will put Mikal Bridges on him and he will get fucking clapped. Yeah. Like
and defensively, Giannis is one of the best defenders in the league. Who is scoring in the paint on Giannis for the Suns?
Nobody.
Look, 8 maybe scores 8.
I say this as nice as possible to this as nice as possible to the Phoenix Suns and any fans that may be listening. But look, if the Brooklyn Nets are going to take down KD, Kyrie, and James Harden in a 7-game series, and look, they weren't all the way there.
Sorry, the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, the Bucks.
Yeah, the Bucks. How the fuck do you think Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre fucking Ayton, a guy who averaged 14 points in the regular season this year, are getting anywhere near the defensive juggernaut that is the Milwaukee Bucks? And you can say that the Suns have the best defensive rating in the playoffs this year, which they do, but I'll also name you the teams in which they played. They played a Lakers team that was bottom half the league in offense and missed 2 of their stars that weren't at full health. They played the Denver Nuggets, who had their best playoff performer historically, Jamal Murray, on the shelf. And they had Aaron Gordon, who is a black hole in offense, at the power forward spot. And then they went on and played the Clippers and played against a team that was led by a guy who had been largely renowned for his playoff struggles in his career and a bunch of middling players. Let's be honest. That is nothing spectacular.
The fact that the Clippers took them 6 is an issue for the
Kawhi played until what?
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Not at all.
He didn't play a single game.
Oh my God, you're right.
Game 4 of the conference semis against the
Utah.
Utah.
Fucking right.
He went out.
So do they even win more than 2 games if Kawhi plays?
You put Kawhi on Devin Booker, he's not scoring shit.
No. Obviously, the Suns go up 2-0 because that's what the Clippers do. And
they do it on purpose. I'm convinced that the Clippers purposely lose the first 2 games of the series. I'm convinced.
It's a false sense of confidence, and then they flip them 2 birds with their middle fingers and say, "Okay, we're done here. Like that was fun, but we're done here." That's what they've done.
I just think the
Paul
NBA
George almost led them to a comeback.
Yeah.
With middling players.
Yeah.
Their second best player was Marcus Morris Sr. and Pat Beverly.
Terrence
Reggie
Mann.
Jackson.
Terrence
Reggie
Mann.
Jackson was good too.
Terrence Mann and Reggie Jackson both had. Imagine them two with Kawhi on the court.
That's what I'm
That
saying.
Did you
Like,
just
over.
say Mark Morris was an all-star on that team for that series?
Morris low-key had an
Jeez.
amazing
He had
playoffs,
like
bro.
3 20-point games.
Dude,
Really?
Morris had a fucking insane
What?
playoffs this year, bro. Like not
He
even
was
a cap.
awesome.
I'm gonna literally
hell?
tell you his stats, and you're gonna like shit your pants.
He was so good. I watched him play. He
Marcus
shot
Morris.
over people.
He played
like
40 minutes in the last game.
What?
He played 40 minutes.
Marcus Morris for the series averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 1.5 assists. I don't know where you're getting.
He had. No, he had last game. He had at least 20 points. The game before that,
he had.
The games I watched, he was
Marcus
awesome.
Morris had 25 points in Game 5.
Yeah.
So,
if you want to talk about someone who balled out, though, like Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson was awesome.
Reggie Jackson was sick.
Reggie Jackson just proved that he can be a starting point guard in this league.
I think.
Yes.
For that
the way
Clippers
he
team.
played. For that. I'm not saying he's up with like Kyrie, Harden. Like I'm not saying he's a top 5 point guard.
He could be a starting point guard
on
the Clippers.
too.
Yeah.
On the Clippers.
Even on the Lakers.
Definitely could be on Philly too.
Reggie could start for. He'd be better than Schroeder.
Currently, probably.
Yeah.
But I don't like saying that. I don't like when players have good playoffs saying that they're like, I don't know.
I don't either. He proved that he could do it though.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We're banking on 6 games of Reggie Jackson versus what's been a fairly long history of Reggie Jackson.
6 games. He did really well all playoffs.
No, like don't get me wrong, he had a good playoff series. But look, if we're banking on like Reggie Jackson to continue that form, like after, because Reggie Jackson really got all the hype after Kawhi left, like a lot of those guys did.
Yeah.
So if you're banking on that version of Reggie Jackson to be your point guard for the Clippers, like I don't know if that's like the safest
going
bet you're
forward. Kawhi going out may be the best thing for the Clippers because he might stay based on what he witnessed Paul George and the rest of the team do.
Yeah. I think yeah, for Kawhi's sake that'd be good, but I still think if they can, because they have a lot of guys who are making like middling level salary, I still think they're gonna go and try and get like that third star, even if it's Kemba Walker. For the injury protection.
Could you imagine Kemba on that team? That would be awesome.
On who? Sorry,
the Clippers.
The Clippers.
Yeah, like what? Like Kemba right now, or like prime Kemba?
Kemba right now, but he'd be awesome on that team.
No, he would.
But look,
he's what they need.
He wouldn't have to carry a whole lot of offensive burden, that's for sure.
And Kemba's role would be more defined than it was in Boston because Kemba came in at a time where they thought he was going to be like the number 2 guy behind Jason Tatum. And then Jaylen Brown came along, and obviously he didn't get he wasn't healthy. I think with an extra year under his belt, like now that he'll be healthier after this offseason, I think he would excel in for the Clippers. Like, I just think that makes too much sense for me. But I think just about any point guard who can like handle the ball and score the ball makes too much sense in LA at this point.
See what you're saying?
Like both LA teams honestly need a guy like that.
Yeah. No. And going back to LA, actually, because the Lakers are probably the epitome of what I would consider Phoenix Suns playoff luck, in that the Lakers lost Anthony Davis in Game 4, and I broke this down a little bit. In the 4 games,
keep rubbing the salt in the wound, bud.
About the Lakers? Are we talking about the Lakers?
Just keep rubbing that salt in the wound.
So in the 4 games that AD played or hobbled around or did whatever, LeBron
played at like 40%.
Yeah, plus 37 and just under 152 minutes of action, which rounds out to about 38 minutes a game. And 2 of those games included AD getting injured, and his Game 1 where he shot worse than Ben Simmons at the free throw line.
Which is not a good stat.
Wow,
to be honest.
It's not.
If I could have one stat in the NBA, I wouldn't want that one.
No.
Like if I got to play one NBA game and they said you got one stat, we get to choose what it is, I'd say I'm not playing in the NBA if that was my stat.
No, I would say honestly, if anyone asked me, it's like, oh, what'd you shoot? And I'd be like, oh, 31.5%. Oh, wait, no, really? That's not bad. And then they'd be like, I'd lie. And I'd be like, yeah, but I held my opponent to that. Actually, I shot 60%, but yeah. But like, LeBron went -24 and -3 in the last 2 games of the series without AD, and just about every single player in the roster, I actually wrote them down. Drummond, Schroeder, Caruso, Kuzma, LeBron, Harrell, and Matthews. Those guys accounted for 60 shots between them in the series.
They hit 20?
And they all shot worse. Like, that was where their averages for the entire series, and they all shot worse field goal wise after game 4. Every single one of them.
Well, it's because AD creates more space, right? Like, it's not like rocket science. Why?
He's a floor spacer on top of being a good player.
And that's just that the point Beck's trying to make is that just adds to the luck, if you want to call it, of the Phoenix Suns, because they played three teams, first one in the first round that just weren't at 100%, and you could tell.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The Suns are they're frauds.
I wouldn't say Houston Astro frauds. I wouldn't say Houston Astro frauds, but like
they're frauds.
I honestly, I would put the Beck's gonna hate this, but I would put the Phoenix Suns right up with the Toronto Raptors if I'm being 100% honest with you.
No, Luke, you're totally right, because I can't say that the Raptors.
I put them past
listen.
Honestly.
Listen,
I kind of do too, to be honest.
Because Toronto beat a Milwaukee Bucks team that was healthy.
No, honestly, I agree with Clem. I put them worse than the Raptors, but they're in the same. They're in that
group of like the luckiest champions.
But I just mean the same group. Like, they're the asterisk championships.
Would they be where they were without it? Absolutely not. The other thing about it too is like KCP had a bad series, but in the 2 games that like they won when AD was there. We're gonna talk about this just a little bit more. Devin Booker shot 41% for 31 in game 2 and 31% for 19 in game 3 when KCP was defending him. And KCP was able to defend him better because KCP didn't have to work as hard to get his own offense. Crazy how that works.
Yeah, it's crazy how the worst team wins when the better players are out on the better team. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, the Western Conference has the 3 best playoff performers in Steph, LeBron, and Kawhi.
Agreed.
Yeah, without question.
Agreed.
Kawhi was out the entire series the Suns played. LeBron was playing at probably 60%.
And AD was gone, which
AD was also gone, who's another top 10 player. So
and then the Nuggets, who I like really liked this season. Jamal was their.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm not just. My point is, I'm not classifying Jamal as like a top player in the league.
No,
but he's absolutely the best player on the Nuggets in the playoffs.
Jamal averaged 25, 6.5 assists, honestly, and 5.7 rebounds in 3 games against the Suns this year. That guy was a Suns killer.
Honestly, I think that if they were going to win a series, if everyone was at full health, it probably would have been the Nuggets, but not sweep. No fucking way.
It would have gone 6 or 7 at least.
I think 7. I definitely think
agree. 7. And I think the Nuggets would have had a chance.
Because Jamal Murray would literally just spend his time shooting over Devin Booker because he's tall, it would
probably be CP3. CP3 would probably be.
Same story. Jamal's pretty fucking big.
Yeah, but CP3 is a good defender, on-ball defender.
No, fair enough.
But he's a top 10 point guard of all time. CP3, especially defensively.
But if you took those 2 teams at full percent and you asked me who to take, I would maybe put my money on someone. It would have been the Nuggets all day with Jamal.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. But my point is, I really don't even give a fuck anymore about these playoffs.
I haven't for a while because it's been like this for fucking
minute. The one reason I give a fuck about these playoffs is because that all those months ago or those 2 months ago or whatever, when we said, hey, let's just write it off. The Brooklyn Nets are going to win. One day, you know what? Maybe the Milwaukee Bucks can win.
Oh, you did?
You said the Milwaukee Bucks might be able to beat the Brooklyn Nets.
My words were, if anyone is going to take down the Brooklyn Nets.
My choice was Milwaukee to go to the finals. They're 1 game away.
My words were, if anyone was going to take down the Brooklyn Nets, it was going to be the Milwaukee Bucks.
Not one of us predicted Milwaukee winning the chip.
No. Not winning the chip. I predicted the Lakers winning the chip. We all saw how fucking that went.
Yeah.
Right, you just
that just speaks to how fucked these playoffs are.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. But I also agree with Beck's point that I'm at least happy that Brooklyn didn't win.
Yes, no, I get that, and I'm
That's
happy
what's
the Lakers
made it interesting for me.
But my whole point is that I don't give a fuck because Brooklyn wasn't healthy.
And neither were the Lakers.
No, neither were the Lakers. So does it really matter that these teams got beat when they weren't healthy? I mean, now they just have something to prove. I think it's a Lakers-Nets finals next year.
I agree 100%. Because if any team is going to beat the Nets or any team going to beat the Lakers, I think
it'll be each other, and that series will go 7.
And that will be insane. That will be an insane.
They will both be the number 1 seed in the conference next year. I'm telling you right now.
Absolute barn burner,
Justin and I are going to be
absolute barn burner.
Justin and I are going to have some crazy money on that series. That's going to be
no shot, dude. I'm not gambling.
500 cash.
I don't gamble, dude.
No, I'm not. We're not talking about gambling on here, but Justin and I are going to have a wager.
We will definitely.
So listen.
It'll be something stupid like Justin has to shave his head, Luke has to shave his beard.
Before you guys go into gambling tips, we are not like pro gamblers or anything.
No, I didn't even mean money, to be honest. I meant like what Clem said, like some stupid shit like that, like some Naked Mile or some.
Okay.
Or run down the street naked. I don't really care.
Or beer or something like that. Not like actual like $1,000 cash.
2 of us have to hop on the Nets train. 2 of us have to hop on the Lakers train, and the losers buy the other.
I want to see what the Lakers do in the offseason. That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
because
I think they don't have to do anything.
They need a couple things. They need to tweak a few things.
But the Lakers also need a mentality shift at the same time.
Yeah,
like. The Lakers, like as good as LeBron is, like
I think when LeBron and AD are fully healthy and they can create that mentality and they can create that fucking because fucking chemistry is a lot. Chemistry means a lot in basketball. I think the two sports that chemistry means the most in are basketball and football. And honestly, I think that when AD and LeBron come back and they create that team chemistry and they have that leadership and hopefully they add a few more decent pieces in the offseason, like look out. We've seen it before.
I think next year, frankly, is going to be one of the greatest, most competitive NBA playoffs we have seen in a long, long time. Because not only are teams like the Lakers and possibly the Clippers and the Nets going to have to prove something because they all have things to prove. Because, like I said, like you guys have said, there's an asterisk. There's also going to be teams like the Milwaukee Bucks and Phoenix Suns who say, "Hey, we're actually pretty legit." And they want
to take over the asterisks. But honestly,
I totally disagree. To be honest.
I'm waiting for the day where I'm at work and I look at my phone and I see Adam Silver has announced the end for game 1 of the 82 game NBA season will start fucking January 1st.
Mm.
Could you imagine?
I'd be so.
I think
angry.
the one I'm looking at most is. I can't wait to see Milwaukee and Brooklyn go at it again. That's what I want to see. I want to see 2 fully healthy squads just go at it.
Like Milwaukee was healthy and it went 7.
And Milwaukee and Brooklyn was not healthy that entire series.
And they went 7. So Brooklyn's,
that's what I mean.
I'm sorry, but Brooklyn's the better team.
No, absolutely. But like you said, and I think there's a point to be made that just about every single NBA championship ever won has an asterisk on it, or could have an asterisk on it, because there's always
a little bit, but not as big as this year.
Nah, it's never been as bad as this.
No.
I've never looked at a series and like other than maybe the Toronto Raptors,
other than last year when the Lakers won.
But okay, but the bubble playoffs that's kind of a different story. That's kind of in its own boat. But what I'm saying is, when it comes down to it. Other than maybe the Raptors having to play against a Clayless and a Durantless Golden State Warriors, I don't think that there's a team that
me neither.
That's been there where it's like being affected so much where
they've lost because of outside factors, or they've lost because of.
And I think that this year is worse because every series has been determined by injuries.
I agree.
In the entire. Like not sorry, other than maybe the Knicks Hawks.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly.
I think most of them were affected by injury, and I don't think it's really a debate. Kawhi out. Now Giannis might be out. Now you have like this AD out. Like you have some of the best players in the world.
You have Kawhi, you have AD, you've got
and
LeBron,
just at the perfect times too.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? It's just
all in playoffs.
It's sad to watch. And then you pair that with the god awful officiating we've seen this season, and it's just not fun to watch, frankly.
Listen,
and to be honest, I feel like the Clippers could have won that series against the Suns if they had a couple more calls.
Don't get me started on the officiating. You guys.
I'm sorry, but the officiating.
We talk about it every episode, but honestly, it's valid because it's fucking atrocious. Like it's so bad. Adam Silver needs to make some serious changes before next season, or he needs to get fucking ousted.
So
because like
they either need all new officials or they need to be able to review some more shit,
or just retrain them. Run like a 2-week seminar and retrain them on shit. You know what I mean? Like,
you know how much training the players are doing? These NBA refs are getting fucking
facts. There's no way that these guys that are giving their fucking 110% spending time away from their kids just to fucking play basketball and win games, and they're losing games because of the officiating. That's fucking bullshit.
Beck, what's the average NBA ref salary? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I think it's like 150 grand.
It's only 50 grand more.
These guys are getting paid 150. Sorry, no, wow. NBA referees are paid anywhere between 180K and 550K. This is
$550K.
That's literally a joke if they're not getting like at least 95% of calls.
That's like 250 grand less than the veterans minimum.
They get apparently
fucked.
As of 2018, 95.95% of calls were made correct.
I know, but
we also talked about that recently too.
We've seen that in playoffs though. That at this point the Clippers were fucked. We've seen lots of calls be fucked.
Like I don't think that we've seen a team lose a series because of officiating, but there have been games where teams have lost because of bad calls.
And it's hard to say if a team would lose a series because if the Clippers tie that 2-2,
fair enough.
If the Clippers tie that 2-2, they don't have to go play.
No, you know what?
3 games and win 3 straight.
But then you get into hypotheticals and just
absolutely. I want to stay away from that. I'm just saying that I
agree. It's
hard to say what a series is or isn't. But at the same time, you can't say it's not changed.
Yeah, you can't say definitively that a team would have won a series or not because of the officiating. But you can definitely say that there were games lost and won because of officiating.
You can argue that officials are more important to games than players are.
So you want to know something funny? You want to know something funny? This whole
here comes Beck to stand up for the refs.
I haven't argued.
I could see Beck being an NBA ref, to be honest. He just has the personality.
I haven't tried to argue with you guys about the reffing thing this whole time because it is a legitimate issue and it needs to be solved. But what I am going to bring up, because you guys mentioned it and then you ran off into reffing, was that there have been several postseason series decided by injuries, and this is not new. It's not. You look at 2014-15,
it's more prominent.
2014-15 finals, Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving went down.
That's one series.
That's the NBA Finals, dude. 2016-17, the Houston Rockets lost Kristen Paul to a hamstring injury in Game 7, a game in which they had to miss 23 straight threes to lose the series. Think if Chris Paul's there, you think they're missing 23 straight?
No, I get that, but you also have I get it. Series have been decided. You remember D Rose when he got injured in playoffs?
Exactly.
They easily could have won the chip. I get that, but at the same time, it's every single series leading up to the finals and the finals that are going to happen. So it's worse this year.
Yes, absolutely, it's worse. I'm just saying it's a part of the game, and it's unfortunate. It's just
totally.
This is not new, but it is worse. Absolutely,
it's been proven that this year has been awful. So say the Suns beat the Lakers because LeBron's out, and then Jamal's healthy and Kawhi's healthy, and let's say Milwaukee makes it through and Giannis is healthy. Yeah, we're not going to see them make it past the second round, the third round, or the finals. It is what it is, and I hate to say it, but this year is worse. And I get that it's a part of the game, but the players have less control over it because they're not in that regular season mode like they have been. Sorry, not regular season, but regular not COVID season. When it's a normal season, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. It is worse. But I think the other thing is we've seen a lot of championships, and this isn't going to be the first one, defined by injuries at critical times.
No, totally.
It's just we've seen a team.
I'm not disagreeing.
Like the Phoenix Suns we've seen a team like the Phoenix Suns where it's been more exemplified because it seems every single time the Phoenix Suns are on the brink, like they go up, the Lakers go up 2-1. And
they won the NBA lottery. They won the NBA lottery.
Yeah, they go and play a Nuggets team that, squeaked by the Blazers in 7 and had their best perimeter scorer out. The guy who would have taken a lot of pressure off all of the other guys.
I think the Blazers could beat the Suns as is if they played.
I think that would have been a way more interesting series.
Honestly,
considering the Nuggets was a 4-game sweep.
I kind of agree, but then I could see that would be I love the Blazers. I'm a big Blazers fan.
Yeah,
so
they're a fun team to watch. And
they're always my backup team if the Lakers go out.
They were the only team that wasn't like really bothered by injuries. And I think if they go up against the Suns, they take them 7. And they were the worst team in the Western Conference playoffs.
Who the fuck did they even lose to? I don't
Denver.
They lost to the Nuggets.
Right. And they lost in like 6 or 7, didn't they?
Yeah, they lost in 7.
So
I think
what I thought. The point is, though, and I think this is another point to make, is like we saw Jokic in the MVP season we had, and then we saw what he did in the playoffs, and it's not like it was bad, but it wasn't the same.
That's what I'm saying. I've been saying it since last year. Joker is not a playoff performer.
But no, it's not like he had a bad playoffs.
He doesn't have the killer mentality.
No, the thing I'm going to say is that perimeter skills and perimeter scoring in playoff basketball is much more translatable than a guy trying to play inside and back down or shoot over the top. Like, it's much harder for a guy like Jokic to score in the playoffs than it is for a guy like Jamal Murray, who is much better at making these tough off-the-dribble shots that playoff series require when teams
are on you defensively. That's what I'm saying,
exactly.
Though, is that Jokic is a great player. I'm not trying to diss Jokic or anything. Obviously, he's an MVP. But at the same time, he's not, to be honest, he's not someone I'd want to build my team around because he's not a playoff performer. He doesn't play well in playoffs. And I'd rather have someone like Embiid, to be honest. I think Embiid's a better playoff performer than Jokic, and I think Ben Simmons absolutely fucked the Philadelphia 76ers. But Joel Embiid could be a number 1 option in playoffs.
I don't know if I'd agree with that he's better than Joker.
No.
In playoffs?
Joker got a lot of attention because everyone knew that there was no other options out there. And then the other options that were out there tanked completely and they got swept. But if Jamal's there, then that gives a lot more room for Jokic and it gives a lot more room for Michael Porter Jr. So that's possible for 2 players to take space to give Joker a lot more space. And I think that's AD. When it's the same thing for AD too. But like I think that Jokic does better in that scenario than fucking Embiid did with Simmons this year.
I think
but again, it's all hypothetical though, right? Like it's.
How I see it is, I think if the 76ers happen to play the Nuggets in a playoff series, I think Embiid would be more impactful than Joker. Both teams fully healthy. I think Embiid could shut down Joker better than Joker could shut down Embiid, and I also think Embiid has that scoring touch.
Yeah,
I think
Joker's game. Disagree.
Joker's game is more multifaceted to the point where he doesn't have to dominate Embiid inside to dominate Embiid, and also he can throw up 15 assists and 10 rebounds.
Facts.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Joker can beat you in a multitude of ways, whereas if Embiid's career average 3-pointer isn't falling, and you somehow can lock him down inside, then what can he contribute on the offensive end? Joker's
toolbox is a lot bigger than fucking Embiid's.
Yeah,
his skill set is a lot wider.
Yeah, it's wider, but I think what Embiid does, he does better.
But I think I really like the way that Beck said that. Like, he doesn't have to shut Embiid down where Embiid's good, because he's better than Embiid in other places in the court, so he just plays him there. And I could easily see him dominating.
Just personally, from watching the two, I'd rather have Embiid. I think Embiid has that clutch factor, and I don't think Joker does.
I think when you talk about clutch factor, though, too, you also consider that, like, when it came to crunch time, like, Harris was their guy in crunch time. True. And then you think about the Nuggets, and Jamal would have been that guy in crunch time and was that guy in crunch time last year.
I'm not saying I'd rather have the Denver Nuggets team, but I think I would rather have. And obviously, the way the Denver Nuggets are built, I'd rather have Joker.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But on the average NBA team, I think I'd rather have Embiid. If I had a choice, if I had a franchise, and I had to choose which center was going to be my franchise player, I personally would take Embiid.
I mean, yeah, but like
it
all comes down to variables, though, man. Like
Yeah.
it all comes down to who you have and who you're like. If
Unless
you're choosing
they happen to play in the finals, we can't see it.
Honestly, if I'm a general manager and I'm starting a franchise and I'm starting my franchise with one of these two players, they're going to be my guy, and I'm building a team around them. I think it'd be easier to build a team around Joker than it would be Embiid, because Joker helps your offense a lot more than Embiid does.
Totally, and that's what Denver has done. In my opinion, he's put guys around him because obviously Joker doesn't need to just be in the paint to dominate, but
he can go anywhere. He's the most versatile center in the league.
So my point is that when it comes down to the average NBA player or NBA team, I think that Joker doesn't translate as well to every team as Embiid does, because you could put Embiid on the Utah Jazz and he'd be better than Gobert. You could put
Gobert, but I think Joker would be insane. I think Joker would be a lot better in the Jazz, to be honest.
But the Jazz, I don't think the Jazz do anything with Joker just because he's not a defensive threat.
Joker adds an element to any offense in the NBA that Embiid cannot match, and that's his passing. And that's
no other center.
No
other center can match that.
Yeah. And that's the ability to say, hey, Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, like, go take a rest. Joker's going to run point. You guys are going to run off ball. You know how much more dangerous that makes those guys? Like, that's unbelievable.
Totally.
For them
Joker opens up your offense so much more, and he does so much more for your team, and like you're the all-around thing of your team, that I think he has more value than
I don't disagree. I just personally like Embiid more than I like Joker. Yeah, I don't like watching Joker play, and I don't think he's that dominant in playoffs. I think Embiid's more dominant in playoffs.
So far, yeah, but like this year was at an asterisk beside it, and last year they made the conference finals, did they not? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they did. They played the Lakers,
and
Joker was invisible
against the Lakers, sure, but like
the entire thing. It was literally
he was nowhere to be seen.
Basically, Jamal carrying that team, and Jamal honestly looked like a top 3 point guard in those playoffs.
That was when Jamal hit that crazy. I don't know what it was.
He hit a bunch of crazy shots.
It was the Jordan-esque layup.
360.
Yeah, it was a Jordan-esque. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the perfect way to put it. They literally had tweets going out saying this guy looks like Jordan, and the way he was playing was absolutely unbelievable, and he looked like he could be a top 3 point guard in the league. I'm not saying Jamal's a top 3 point guard, but I think the team around Joker is a better team than the team around Embiid, especially the way fucking Ben Simmons played in playoffs.
Yeah, and that's also because the Denver Nuggets built that team around Joker, and the Philadelphia 76ers built that team around Embiid.
I think they built it around Ben Simmons, though.
They built it around both of them. They tried to build it around both of them.
Yeah,
I think that's on the 76ers, though.
Ben Simmons is a factor. Ben Simmons is a factor, but I think that attests to how Joker benefits your team more, because they built a team around Joker, and it's a better team than the team that they've built around.
Okay, but if you lay it out, would you rather have Jamal or Ben Simmons?
Jamal.
Would you rather have MPJ or Tobias Harris?
Tobias Harris.
At this point in his career, Tobias Harris, yeah.
Yes. So
I love MPJ. I'm a big MPJ fan, but as of right now, Tobias Harris.
No, I agree with that. That was my one that I was going to say, okay, I'm going to give that to the 76ers.
Okay.
But for the rest of the starting lineup, I would rather
Seth Curry over Will Barton.
Definitely. 110%.
Seth Curry over Will Barton.
And you know what? That's not a debate.
And I don't know. So if you're thinking starting five, you're looking at Jamal, Will Barton, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, and Jokic, and then you're looking towards you're looking at Simmons, Seth Curry, Danny Green, Tobias Harris. So Danny Green's the one where I would say, you know what, like that's a throw that one out, and you're putting, I guess maybe Aaron Gordon, not even Aaron Gordon in there. You have to put, who am I thinking of? Because we said Tobias Harris over MPJ. I'm missing one because Tobias Harris would play power forward.
Well, so Tobias Harris over Aaron Gordon then.
Definitely.
Yo, absolutely.
And then I'm taking
Green.
Yeah.
And then MPJ over Danny Green, but Seth Curry over Will Barton.
Definitely.
But then you have Jamal over Ben Simmons, in my opinion.
That's totally opinion based because do I think Ben Simmons would work better with a guy like Nikola Jokic? Fuck yeah, absolutely, I do.
Totally.
Yeah.
And because honestly, the Sixers made the conference finals 2 years in a row. Like,
yeah,
or no, they didn't make the conference finals this year. Did they?
The Sixers didn't. No, but
no, they made it last year.
As good as Jamal has been, like, I don't know. For me, like, do I want to bank on the potential of having an absolute all defensive shutdown guy in Simmons who can guard 1 through 5, or do I want a guy in Jamal Murray who's been traditionally good in playoffs, but is also known to be a streaky shooter, and also isn't very great defensively?
I prefer Jamal 9 times out of 10, especially the way I've seen Ben Simmons play.
But if I'm looking at that, statistically, sure, but like Ben Simmons gives a lot to that fucking offense, like to that fucking Denver Nuggets offense. Like he would, not to say he's better than Jamal, but he would. That would be pretty. Cool.
I agree that he would play better with Jokic because Jokic doesn't have to be in the paint. But I don't think that's on Embiid that he was playing with Ben Simmons.
The other thing, too, is, though, the Denver Nuggets would value Ben Simmons way more because the Denver Nuggets won't struggle to get offense from other places as much as the Sixers do.
Definitely.
Because they have a guy, Nikola Jokic, who can pass people open like that.
Exactly.
See, putting Ben Simmons on a team with Nikola Jokic would be deadly because you would have a center that can play the paint and outside.
Let's see.
Plus, you know what? I think just those two.
Jokic, and then Ben Simmons' defense makes up for Jokic's lack of defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
I'm speaking to the NBA. Let's see Ben Simmons and Jamal Murray get traded, please. I want to.
Honestly, I actually really like that trade. Now that I think about it.
Too.
Like with some picks and some other players involved. That's honestly like every team's getting what they want. Like
I think so,
but I think
to be honest, I don't think Denver would do it.
I don't think they would. It would cramp them up. It would cramp them up especially with Aaron Gordon.
And I honestly, I feel like Philly's too cocky to do that. I feel like the Philly management loves fucking. Yeah, they value Ben. They value Ben Simmons so high.
They value him as a content
up
player.
here.
Saying that, can I bring up the Brogdon trade?
Sure.
Yes.
Can I bring that?
Bring it up. You haven't talked the whole episode, Bridget.
Yeah, literally.
Bring something up, please.
The Brogdon trade was. I don't know how you turn that down.
What was it? I didn't.
It was
Malcolm.
Ben Simmons.
It was Malcolm.
Let him.
It was one of the ones that I brought up last. Is one of the ones that I brought up last episode.
What was it, Justin?
I let Beck say it. It was a first round pick.
Yes.
Malcolm Brogdon.
It was a first next year from the Pacers and Malcolm Brogdon for Ben Simmons.
Yeah. Which if I'm not mistaken, I thought one of us had said that trade.
Clem did, I think.
Yeah, I brought up a couple last week, and
I think maybe not one of them, but it was like pretty close.
Did
like
you
it wasn't exact?
Anything?
It was Brogdon. Brogdon for Simmons, and I think Philly gets a pick too. I can't remember. I don't have my notebook in front of me. Actually,
you know what I did? I did Brogdon and TJ Warren for Ben Simmons, George Hill, and a pick. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that was close to what I had. I can't remember which side I had the value
at this point,
to.
You're getting Brogdon, who gets 20, who had an absolute stellar season, but a guy who's like one of the best lights out shooters in the NBA, like a 2-time member of the 50-40-90 club. He averaged 21.2, 5.9, and 5.3. You're getting similar statistical impact in the trade-off, like from Simmons' defense to Brogdon's offense. And then you're getting a go-to scorer in TJ Warren, who arguably could almost be a better closer than like Tobias Harris.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then you get scoring like 1 through 5. But not only that, you get to absolutely maximize the fuck out of Embiid because you have 3 guys who have all shot like above 38% from 3 in their career. Like, pick your poison, man. You're either getting dominated by Embiid on the outside or you're getting absolutely flame thrown by the rest of these guys out there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I like that trade.
Yeah.
I like that trade.
But to be honest, I think that Brogdon is a very similar player to Jamal Murray, maybe not the value-wise, but I think the way they play is kind of similar.
Brogdon's definitely not as flashy, and age-wise, there's less potential there for Malcolm Brogdon for sure. He's much more of a steady contributor.
Well, that's why you include TJ Warren, but
yeah, Brogdon's gonna get his points more in the flow of an offense than whereas Jamal Murray can basically go one-on-one and clear out and score on these guys.
Well, he can ISO, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I bring up something that isn't quite basketball related?
Yep.
Yeah.
Fuck the Montreal Canadiens. They are going to take such a fat L, and I'm so happy to see it.
What was the score?
Like
6-3.
6-2. Oh, 6-3.
6-3. Yeah.
Tampa's going to repeat.
Wow.
Before,
fuck the Habs.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Fuck them.
Tampa in 5. If you want to hear more about that, actually Tampa in 4 now, to be honest. But if you want to hear more about that, come check out the Dusty Buttes.
The Stanley Cup final hasn't been a sweep in like 60 years. I don't think
you
there's
imagine if it was.
It'd be crazy.
I mean, it just proves how bad fucking Montreal.
I would lose it on purpose and then go win it at home in Tampa because there's gonna be no fans in Montreal.
Yeah, that's true. I would rather win it in Tampa.
I'd rather win it at home.
But I'd rather be the team to make it a sweep.
Yeah.
I'd rather win it at home. Especially they won it last year.
The joy and satisfaction of walking out of the Bell Center with a cup in your hand, still like the 50,000 Canadians fans.
They're gonna get their bus lit on fire, bro.
Yeah, literally.
There's cop cars being flipped. The cops can't do anything because they have the fucking police station shut down.
French people haven't seen this since the 90s, and then they're gonna get swept and they're gonna fucking rage.
This just shows you how bad Toronto is gonna be. The day Toronto wins a cup.
Literally.
Oh,
I can't.
I can't.
We're gonna be like 65, but like
it doesn't matter. I don't care.
That's the day I go.
Like I'm 19.
That's the day I die.
I want our dads to be alive for a Leafs Cup, though.
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I don't really care.
Especially because
be alive for that.
Well, yeah, let's just get in the personal life. But all right.
Especially because they were robbed of one in the 90s.
Oh yeah. Well, that was just years of like Pat Quinn just absolutely raw dog.
No, it was Gretzky high sticking the shit out of Doug Gilmour and then not getting a fucking 5 in a game.
That too. We can.
That was horseshit. But like we don't need to talk about 90s hockey on a basketball podcast.
No, if we ever wanted to talk about 90s basketball, that would be one thing. But
we talk about 90s basketball every time.
Yeah. Literally. Can PG be a number one option on a contending team? And I wish Brent hadn't gotten up from his chair right as we asked this question, because I think he's the one and only person who might rule in favor of this question.
Yeah, I don't think so. Number one option?
Yeah.
So
on the contending team.
On a championship contending team.
He could be a number one option, but they might not be a contending team.
Well,
they won't be. What will they be contending for exactly is the question.
Exactly.
I have one team. That I genuinely think he could be a number one option on the contender.
Rip it, bud.
The Washington Mystics.
Oh my. Fucking who?
I think he would take that team to 82-0. And they would not lose in the playoffs.
Honestly, let's be honest here. I don't even know if Paul George could be a number one option on like the Las Vegas Aces.
God damn.
That was the most disrespectful thing to Paul George. Like, I'm putting all my money on DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah. I'll pay y'all $100,000. To shut the hell up, and then I'll put all my money on DeMarcus Cousins.
If there's no referee, I'm going to the bank, emptying my account, I'm selling my house, and I'm putting it all on DeMarcus Cousins.
You really gotta respect like the neutral view that like the USA women's basketball coach took to it. Is like, look,
that was their coach, bro.
Yeah,
no, that was their coach.
That was their coach.
That was the women's coach.
Are you
that
serious,
was literally
man?
Man. That's the funniest part about it. Like he just dogged his own player.
Because I thought there was someone. No. Because I think it was KD. I think KD said, "Look, like you gotta respect her confidence." And all,
totally.
Like KD's look like she's a good player in the WNBA. Respect her confidence.
Respect mentality.
Yeah, but he's like, look, you're going up against a whole different echelon of players here.
But he's like, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah,
but
I think
anyway, we got a little too carried away with that. Yeah. But no, I really don't think that. I don't think that PG has shown us enough that I would be confident in him being a number one option on a. Honestly. But no, I was gonna say the 76ers, but I don't even think he'd be the number one option on the 76ers.
I think we're past the point where we can say that PG would be a number one option on a championship team, because we've even saw it like in the series this year against Phoenix, where he, as great as he was offensively, there wasn't the kind of two-way impact that you would expect from a guy who we would call a guy like a championship driver.
Yeah.
I think the only few guys, and I think that's a very short list of who we can call championship drivers, or guys that kind of shift the mentality of your team from like, hey, we're pretty decent, to like, hey, we can really win this year. Yeah. I think those guys would be Kawhi, Steph, LeBron, and maybe Giannis. Like, even, there's a few guys who haven't proved themselves, and I think Giannis can maybe change that narrative this year. Like, he has had a great postseason, but that list is very short.
It is very short.
And it's short for a reason. Like, there's not a lot of players that can even the list of players that can do that in the history of the NBA is probably relatively short, because there's not a lot of players that are able to carry a team like that or drive a team like that. Because
those players we find at like the top of what we talk about all time.
It commands a certain level of respect. Like to be able to drive a team to a championship is also to be a leader. And to be a leader, you have to have everyone on the team want to follow you, and you have to command respect from every single player on your team. And if not, get the fuck out. And there's not a lot of players that command that type of respect. And I think no one other than the people Beck just named can, to be honest.
No. I pulled up just for my own sake, because I wanted to kind of see if there was ever an instance.
Yes, Clem, we see that you're drinking hard iced tea, and it is very, very entertaining. Thank you for showing us.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
We love we love the sugary boozed up.
Yes. Thank you for showing us you drink the alcohol of a 13-year-old girl.
Thank you.
You know what? Thank you. These are not twisted teas, and I suggest you try them.
I have, and they taste the exact same.
No, they do. These taste like American tea, like proper tea. My mom likes them, which says something, because she doesn't like sweet. She doesn't like sweet drinks.
That's a hangover waiting to happen.
No, these don't get you hungover. I swear to God, they're like real tea with like maybe a sugar.
You know what?
The green teas have been pretty good lately.
White Claw probably like called them up and said like, "Hey, how much sugar do you put in these things?"
White Claw makes iced teas now. White Claw makes iced tea. White Claw now. Yeah, apparently it's pretty good.
Yeah, but Brent, we were talking about Paul George and whether we think he could be a number one option on a championship contending team, and you brought up the question, so I want to see if that's something for maybe you have a positive answer, because I think.
Did you guys all have negative answers? Because I might kill myself.
Yep. Every single one of us.
We all did. It was very unanimous.
And that's my cue. All right, I'll see you guys later.
All right, peace out, Justin.
Justin's going to cut a little earlier. He's got something to deal with.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wrap
it up.
Curfew tonight.
Good night.
Shout out, Melanie.
Oh, Jesus.
All right.
Anyway.
Brent, what's your...
You know what? Out Justin while he's not here. So we were in the chat, and Justin goes, "I gotta go," and he goes, and we were like, "Why?" And he goes, "I'm gonna go smash." And we're like, "Okay, you know what? Fair enough answer. I'll give you that." And so someone goes, "Who are you smashing?" And Justin goes, "Chick with fat ass."
I believe that was you that asked.
I did ask, you're right. And he goes, "Chick with fat ass," and I just think that was really funny.
And then he goes, "Melody, fellas, I gotta go." I said, "Okay." Jesus, Melody? He goes, yeah.
Yeah.
Justin is an animal, and we respect that. He left for a fine reason, and we respect it. But Clem, let's hear this blasphemous opinion of Paul George that you've jumped up here.
The one we've already torn down previously. So let's
you're joining from behind. So let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can bring it home.
Yeah.
Do I think Paul George can take a below average team and make them a contender? No. Do I think that he can? Do I think that he could be a number one option on a very deep team with a good second, third, and fourth option? Yes. I think if I don't know the players off the top of my head. If I knew you guys were going to think I'm so blasphemous for saying this, I would have prepared some players for you guys.
I just the trouble with that opinion is, in order to be the number one option, you're the best player on the team. Can you name me 3 guys that are worse than Paul George that would make a contender with
Not even
Paul
that.
George?
Listen,
Tobias Harris.
2 guys that are legitimately good enough to form a big 3 to compete with what's in the NBA today.
That's what I mean.
That's where I'm saying I don't think it would be a big 3. I think it would be a very, very deep team.
Okay. Replace Paul George with Donovan Mitchell. Is that a championship contender?
Actually, let's think about this.
Okay.
How do we feel about putting Paul George on the Atlanta Hawks?
No.
No. But where does that team, we've seen what that team can do.
Instead of Trae Young? Or with Trae Young?
Well, I don't know. Because that's his...
With Trae Young, I think that might make it a contender.
But I still think Trae Young's the number one option on that team.
Now, when we say, number one option, right? Because we talk about guys who are number one options, and we talk about LeBron, and we talk about Kawhi, and Steph's probably the only true, we say, championship driver that maybe isn't known so much for his defense. But you look
not
at
bad defensively, just not known for it.
No, certainly.
He has led the league in steals before. He's not that bad of a defender. It's just
and that's not what we're saying. He's just not known for it, which is a fair statement because he's not. He's known for being the best 3-point shooter that's ever played the game,
which is true. Yeah. No, totally. I'm just saying that it's not like he's a bad defender,
and that's what I just said. He's not a bad defender. He's just not known for his defense. Anyway, continue.
And I looked at some of just past seasons where we saw guys that really drove championships really nail that home in terms of their legacy and that. And I'll look at this season for you in terms of PG and his series with the Suns. His player impact estimate, which I've spoken about before, and how
I don't like these stats, but okay.
Oh, buddy, I love them. But anyways,
just personally, I'm not a fan of these stats.
That's fine.
If the NBA puts out a stat, then it's reliable in my opinion.
No, I totally understand that. I just don't like the way these stats are decided personally.
Well, yeah. If you were the commissioner of the NBA, then, or when you're commissioner of the NBA, then you
because
can change
we totally agree with everything the NBA commissioner does.
But he's not in charge of the stats.
I know. I was just saying, if you're gonna make that joke, I'm gonna come at you.
Fair enough. But their stats that the professionals in the NBA are putting out, I trust them and I think that they're reliable. Anyway, sorry, Beck.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We talked last week when we had the Trae Young debate about player impact estimate and how the NBA breaks that down. And essentially, to sum it up, if you're as a starter, your PI is above 10, then you're considered an average to good to elite player. So we'll talk about LeBron in 2016. He had a player impact estimate of 20, or accounting for 2 players essentially, when he averaged 26.3, 7.6, and 9.5 throughout the whole playoffs. Obviously, that doesn't take into account his finals where he was just utterly dominant, right?
Yeah.
Steph in 2015 had 17.4 throughout his entire postseason. He was 28.35 and 6.4 with 1.9 steals. And shot 42% from 3. Giannis this year is at 19, and he's 28.2, 12.7, and 5.2 assists with 1 steal and 1 block.
That's such a crazy stat line.
And then, actually, I have Kawhi, actually, in 2019. 19.2 with 19.2 PI, 34.5 points, 3.9 assists, 9.1 rebounds. But then I also have Finals Braun from 2016, which is 23.6 PI, 29.7 points per game, 11.3 rebounds, 8.9 assists, 2.3 steals, and 2.3 blocks. Arguably the greatest performance ever.
That's the greatest. That's the greatest finals performance ever, and I don't really care. Whatever. that is the single-handed greatest one player performance in a playoff we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's even close.
And it's a harsh criticism to PG because PG took them farther than they ever would have been without him against the Suns. But that's the criticism that you have to make when it comes to being a number one option on a championship contending team.
What was KD's? Just out of pure curiosity.
KD's went
in this year. What was it? I just out of pure curiosity.
KD's like player impact estimate.
Yeah, in these playoffs. In like the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I believe it was like high. It was higher, obviously, because how do I put this?
If you can't find it offhand, that's fine. I was just interested to know.
No. I'll find it. I have it right now.
Okay, so back.
Yes.
My whole point to that is that Kawhi was supposed to be that number one guy on that team, and he wasn't there. So if you get rid of,
he wasn't there. Luke,
yes,
19.7.
Cool. Yeah,
okay,
about average to one of the top 10 player on the team.
So if you pull Kawhi out of that team in the offseason and you go out and get a number 2, maybe a number 3 for the money that Kawhi's worth,
but
maybe not a number 2 star
at that point, at that price point, that's tough to say. Like, what's your?
That's a big if. Like, I don't.
No, I'm just saying. So my whole point is, if let's say PG has one more star on his team, and he's the number one guy.
Like, one
do
more
you think
star,
that he loses to the Suns?
But I'm trying to think of a star that's wouldn't take the number one spot over PG.
Russell Westbrook.
Then no, absolutely not, because we saw what those guys did, and they flamed out incredibly.
Yeah, they did not.
This is a different team, though.
It didn't work.
Okay, so not Russell Westbrook necessarily.
I don't think that
Let's
works.
say
it didn't work.
Sorry, if I had time to. If
and
you brought up this
Russell,
argument before, I would have had an argument for you here.
We're only an hour and 17. Like, you can.
That's fine. Yeah. Pick your player.
Because I'm interested to know.
We'll move on from this one for now, and we'll come back to this one then.
Okay, that's full to me. I'm interested because I just don't. Yeah. I can't think of one or two guys that either one of them would have to be better than PG to make them a contender. I would think that either
they made the conference final though.
Yeah, but they made it
Kawhi,
with Kawhi for a majority of those playoffs. Like, he didn't play that series, but for the majority of those playoffs, it was Kawhi.
But PG still beat the number 1 seed Utah Jazz.
Without Kawhi.
But he did for the last couple games when they were down.
But did they win that full series without Kawhi? No.
It's hard to say because Paul George won 2 straight games without Kawhi.
But that's 2. Like,
in the clenching situation where he has to.
I don't think that team wins that series without Kawhi.
They won
from game 1
in that series, anyways. Like,
by the Utah Jazz
Kawhi went out in game 4, that game was over.
The Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns are very, very similar teams, and when you take that with Kawhi, even with Kawhi for the first 5 games, they didn't lose. They won 2. They won 3 and lost 2, if I'm not mistaken.
What are you talking about?
What game did Kawhi go out against Utah?
Game 4.
He went out in game 4.
That's
and
right.
After game 4, what was the series at? 2-2?
It's 2-2, correct.
So PG took 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they win 2 games without Kawhi, to be honest. I don't think that I don't think that series is tied 2-2 without Kawhi.
No, because by the time game 4 was over, Kawhi had already, that game was
he had impacted enough that they had to pursue a win.
That's right.
Like, I don't think Paul George would have carried them past the Utah Jazz, and he clearly couldn't carry them past the Phoenix Suns. And
no,
not to say that he was expected to, because I didn't expect him to, but it's troubling. I'm having trouble thinking of one player that would, if there was one player that they were going to replace with Kawhi, they would have to be better than PG. Or if it was 2 players, I'm trying to think of 2 players that are worse than PG that would make them a contender.
Like, worse than PG. What about Kyrie?
I think Kyrie's better than Paul George.
No, he's not. I'm sorry. Just by the numbers, he's not.
Really?
I think like they both made All NBA 13, but I think in terms of two-way impact, like you just have to give it to Paul George. Kyrie Irving just doesn't play the defense that Paul George does. But on offense, like if we're talking about number one option, I still would go to Kyrie.
Me too. Number one offensive option.
Number one, yeah.
Because number one option isn't a thing on defense. They just you defend the number one option, but the number one option is mainly an offensive term. And if that's Kyrie and Paul George on offense, as well as Paul George might be your best player, I think that on offense, Kyrie Irving's still your number one option because he's a more of an offensive threat than Paul George is.
Okay, so I totally agree with that. And the question is, can he be a number one option? I totally get that. But I think when it comes to this guy be the number one guy, because LeBron's not always the number one option on offense.
No, like LeBron's always been. Can Paul George be the best player on a championship
contending team? The best player,
the best all-around player.
I don't think so. I still don't think so.
Me neither.
I do because I think that with Kawhi Leonard's salary, you could bring in someone like Jamal Murray.
Jamal Murray makes pretty much
no, he doesn't.
Same. He makes 35.
No, he doesn't. Jamal makes 27. Kawhi makes 30.
Where is this? What's your source?
ESPN.com.
All right. So he makes.
They give that kind of information on ESPN.
5 years, $170 million. So
they could get Jamal Murray, who's not a better player than Paul George. I'm sorry, he's not.
No,
but I don't think. Okay, Jamal, and then who else?
You could get another good role player to put behind them, because the way Reggie's been playing, you could honestly say that he could be a third option.
But who makes up for Kawhi's defense? Because neither of those two guys can play defense the way Kawhi does. And neither of those guys could honestly shut down another team's number one option.
Yeah, and we talked about best player.
Do you think Paul George could shut down LeBron James or Steph Curry?
I do think Paul George
Giannis
is one of the best defenders in the league. Giannis is a big man.
I think he's a great defender, but do I think that he could defend a lot? Some teams' number one option. Do I think he could lock them down effectively? No, for games, maybe not for a full series.
I think we saw it with Paul George too, where guys like Chris Paul and Devin Booker continued to go off in the absence of Kawhi Leonard. And it wasn't even like we saw maybe one of them go off. We saw games where
he couldn't guard.
Devin Booker had 31 and CP3 had 41. Like that.
He couldn't guard CP3 and Booker. How's he going to fucking defend like Steph and Clay, Giannis and fucking Drew?
Paul George could.
George
was awesome on defense.
He couldn't defend Devin Booker and CP3.
He totally could.
They lost.
Two guys.
I'm just saying, like you're saying, with this team, Jamal Murray couldn't. Jamal Murray doesn't play that great a defense.
Okay, let's say that instead of Jamal Murray, you put Nikola Vucevic on that team. Who makes less than Jamal? I know he doesn't have the winning stats to show like that he's a playoff contender.
I don't hate Vucevic, but again, like you run into Joel Embiid, they're not winning that. You run into fucking Giannis.
Paul George is a better player than
Vucevic isn't though. And that's going to be who's guarding him.
At the end of the day, Brent?
No, I don't think that Joel loses to Cat.
He doesn't have to beat him.
Well, yeah,
Paul George is better than Ben Simmons. Paul George is better than Jamal Murray. So yeah, you can say they might lose that center matchup slightly because Cat is still a great defensive player, great offensive player.
But I think that center matchup would outweigh Paul George and any of those three guys you just mentioned, to be honest. Because he's a great defender, but I think a few of those guys you just mentioned are better than him on offense. Or can be better than him on offense. Because I don't know. I can't see Paul George being the number one guy on a team that's a contender. Yeah. I could see him being the number two guy. He's the number two guy right now, but like I think he fits that role really well.
He was the number one guy for that entire series against the Suns, though.
And they lost.
Because they were missing their number one option. If he had a number
Exactly.
If he had a number two option behind him, though, They easily could have won that. If you put another higher mid-level player, they might win that series. Yes.
Levine.
I mean, no, because they play the same position.
Yeah.
That's not a good example.
Zach LaVine's a guard, and Paul George is a small forward.
Paul George is a guard. I'm sorry.
Kawhi plays small forward, and Paul George gets pushed to shooting guard. There's a difference.
He's always played shooting guard. Paul George has played point guard in his career. Paul George is a guard more than a shooting guard. I'm sorry, he is.
Not currently.
Yes, he was a shooting guard this year.
I guess, but I still don't think so.
Because they're the same player.
It's all opinionated, but I just don't think he can do it, to be honest.
Listen, dude, you want to talk about Jamal? Let's talk about Paul George as a playoff defender, okay? Defensive box plus minus, because much he contributes to his team per 100 possessions. This dude was a negative in the playoffs and was even worse in the regular season.
Because Kawhi gives you a level of defense that it's hard to. The reason that Clippers team is so good is partially because Kawhi could shut down number one options on other teams. And he's one of the best defensive players in the NBA. And not that Paul George is not a great defender, because he always has been. But do I think that he could be the number one dude that defends the number one dude on the other team? No.
If he has a number two option below him, say they give them one more pretty decent player as a number two option.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
PG doesn't lose that series to the Suns as the number one option.
I don't know. It would depend on who that number two guy is, because
that really depends.
Okay, let's just say it's a pretty decent center.
Because you're eliminating.
That's what they're lacking at. That is what they're lacking.
Vucevic or Towns.
Yes.
All right. So then we talk about how
you don't think they can shut down Ayton?
Yeah, but then
needed to be shut down.
Ayton was the biggest mismatch in the playoffs.
But it was CP3 and Devin Booker that were winning games for them, man.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
In the paint, it wasn't. Ayton had 3 double-doubles in that series.
Devin Booker's had how many 30-plus point games now?
In that series, I think he had 1. I
don't think the Phoenix Suns are as dangerous in the paint
I think
as they are.
2, maybe 3.
I don't think that the Phoenix Suns are dangerous in the backcourt, not as much as in the paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem with the Clippers is they didn't have a center. Their number one center was out. As long as their number one option. So
I think that their number one
option.
So
he still took them 6 games.
No, but we've seen teams like LeBron where he dragged an undermanned Cavs team to 6 games in the NBA Finals against a loaded Warriors team. So that's a totally different scenario. We saw Kawhi drag a Raptors team past the Bucks and the Sixers, teams that were largely considered to be better than both of those teams. We've seen these guys that we've considered to be the NBA championship drivers. We've seen them push past these things. And Paul George
can I make a point here?
Let him finish.
And he didn't succeed in that opportunity. Paul George had the team that was capable of getting him that far, and they did get that far, and he got them to the conference finals, don't get me wrong, but the minute he got to the conference finals, it was high and dry. If you want to think about when did LeBron 2018 NBA Finals, when LeBron's second best player beside him was a shitty Kevin Love.
Kyle Korver, Kevin Love.
An over the hill Kevin Love. And then his next best contributor was maybe
PG's best player was
George
Reggie
Hill.
Jackson.
And they lost.
Yeah, I'd rather an over the hill fucking Kevin Love than an over the hill Reggie Jackson.
But
Reggie Jackson played better than anyone thought he was going to play.
Mm-hmm. And Reggie Jackson also probably put up better numbers than Kevin Love did, too.
I honestly would probably agree with you. He was probably right.
Where you're wrong is you're saying that, okay, LeBron had this incredible playoffs. Yes.
A lot of incredible playoffs.
Okay, where does LeBron rank as of players right now?
Right now,
I'd say he's still above
top
PG.
5. Yes.
He's still above PG. 5. But that's not my point. My point is, in the past 5 years, he's been a top 3 player, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And in the year he did that, he was a top 2 player.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably. What's your point?
I'm not saying PG can carry a team to the championship. I'm saying he can be a he can be a number one option on a contending
but
team.
When it comes to that, PG is going to have to beat dudes like that
as
the number one option. And I don't think he can do it.
If you're in the conference final, you're a championship contending team.
But think about how far.
And they don't get there without Kawhi. They don't get there without Kawhi. They don't. I'm sorry, they don't.
But if they had another number 2 behind Paul George, so you're saying that they're missing Serge Ibaka and Kawhi Leonard, that if they don't have 2 players, decent players, at least a number 2 behind Paul George, Reggie Jackson's not a number 2 option, and he had to be in playoffs.
Look, dude. Do you want to call the 2016 Toronto Raptors a championship contender just because they made it to the finals, like the conference finals, and then got beat in like 4 games? It got blown out of the water by the Cavs. That's not a championship contender. That's a team that made the most of what was in front of them. Though. Okay. Yeah.
Paul George carried them 6 games without 2 of his best players.
The Atlanta Hawks are not a fucking. They're not a contender either, and they made the conference finals this year.
Yeah.
They're not injured.
The Clippers got blown out by an average of 12 points per game in their losses, dude. Like, that's not close. That's a write-off.
I see. No, like, I'm not disrespecting. Like, I see what you're saying. I see what the point you're trying to make, and I don't totally disagree with it. I just think that in this, I think he could be the number 1 option on an average playoff team. Absolutely. But I don't think that he can be the guy, the number 1 dude on both sides of the court. I don't think he could be that guy and be a legitimate contender because they have to beat. Because you have to beat guys like Kawhi and those dudes, and I don't think that Paul George can do that. That's my opinion.
At the end of the day, you have to go through teams that like give you fits and teams that may be better than you, and ultimately you have to, as a championship like leader, you have to elevate the players around you, and Paul George doesn't do that.
There's a lot more to being the number 1 guy than just stats.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, but I think Paul. I don't know. I think you guys are disrespecting Paul George like the media does. I think everyone disrespects Paul George.
I don't think that I've disrespected Paul George at all. I think I've given him my fair opinion. I don't think I've not.
No, and I get that. I'm just saying that Paul George is.
I'm not saying he's a
third in MVP voting like 2 years ago. Like he can be an MVP caliber player if he wants to.
He was 3rd in MVP voting when they played for Oklahoma City.
Yes.
Yeah. He
was really?
Yeah.
Then they flamed out in the first round.
And then they got killed in the first round.
Yeah, by Dane.
Basketball's a team sport, though.
Playoffs are where it matters, man.
Yeah.
And, like, no, it's not. Was OKC's loss all on Paul George? No. But he was, like,
To be fair to Paul George, though, he does wear the label for that, and he deserves.
Totally. Like, I don't think that he deserves. I don't think that he deserves as much hate as he gets from the media. And I'm not trying to be like hop on the media train. Like I make my pandemic P jokes, but I don't think that he's a bad player. I think he's one of the better players in the NBA. But it's really hard.
He's a top 10 player in the NBA.
Sure.
Right now.
Sure. I would probably agree with you. But I don't think that it's really hard to be that guy on a contending team. And I don't think that he can do it. I don't think that he can do it.
I put this as nicely as possible. And this is my objective view. If KD can't do it, Paul George can't do it.
There you go. That's that. Honestly,
I don't think PG has the same mentality as KD, and I think mentality is the problem for KD.
KD simply is just a better player who can't do it, and PG.
But his mentality is not better than Paul George.
Paul George literally came out and said in an interview, he's like, "I had my MVP season. I'm a good player." And he called it an MVP season, and he finished 3rd MVP voting. That's not an MVP season. That's a poor mentality. That's diluting your true value.
Literally, it's like riding on your own coattails.
That's exactly it. And
if
KD
any
does
player
that all
is
the time.
Okay, if there's players that have been this, I think KD may be one of the most, PG may be one of the most slandered players of all time.
And
if you're overcoming that and still doing well, that's very fucking impressive. If PG never had that slander, and like, it's a total different story.
But now we're just getting into fucking terrible hypotheticals, man.
Look, people like Phil Jackson hated Kobe for all of the shots he took and like all the shots he missed, but Kobe kept taking those shots because Kobe believed himself and had the mindset to like.
That's one dude.
Kobe became that guy.
That's one.
But that's an example of these dudes like that. Like, it's the same example.
Every one of them has missed shots.
Steph has that. LeBron has that. Jordan, all of them, all these number one guy options have mentalities very similar to that.
You're naming top 10 players of all time.
Even Kawhi, man. Like Kawhi,
Kawhi by the end of his career could be a top 10 player of all time.
But that's the unfortunate reality of the NBA now, that you have to be an absolutely legendary player in order to be a number one option on a team that is going to win a championship.
It's hard as fuck in the era that the NBA is in right now with all of these super ass teams. It is hard to be a legitimate contender. Like it's hard to be the number one guy at a legitimate contender without being one of these amazing NBA players. Okay. And I don't think Paul George is on that level.
Let me ask you this then. Can Devin Booker?
No.
Because they're in the NBA Finals right now,
and we literally talked for 45 minutes about how that has the biggest asterisks
in NBA history.
And then
he beat Paul George. So you're literally like
with an injured team. My point is, I get that Kawhi's injured and he's a number one player, but if you replace Kawhi with a number two option behind PG, Jamal Murray, players like Jamal, then they don't lose to the Suns. I don't think. Paul George took them 6 games against a fully healthy team with his starting center and one of the best top 3 players in the league out.
Okay, sure. If Kawhi Leonard wasn't on the Clippers and they had a number 2 guy, they would have had a better chance of being the Suns and probably could have. Okay, sure. No. Let me finish.
All right.
But if we're doing hypotheticals, if everyone in the league in the Western Conference is fully healthy, and you take that Clippers team with, let's take Kawhi out and put Jamal Murray in, do they get past the second round?
Bye. Yeah.
No.
Bye.
They don't.
And look, even if they get to
who did they play in the first round?
Who did they play? They played Dallas.
So they're beating Dallas.
They might have got. That's what I said. They would probably get past the first round, maybe, but they're not getting past the second round.
They beat Denver.
No, they would not.
Yeah, they wouldn't beat
Denver. Without Kawhi Leonard.
They wouldn't beat Utah.
I don't think they lose. I don't think they lose to that team.
I think.
Listen. At the end of the day, you can call yourself a championship contender all you want, but let's flip the switch here and let's look at the NHL. The Montreal Canadiens are about to get swept out of the Stanley Cup final. Is that legitimate championship contention? No. That's riding some coattails and some lucky breaks to a Stanley Cup final that you have no right to be in.
Against the team now. Against a legitimate championship contender, and they're clearly showing them that they are the championship contender and the other one is not.
Because if you can get to the Stanley Cup final all you want, but when you're a championship contender, you are legitimately playing to win the damn thing and not make it like a 5-game series or a 6-game series, exactly what the Canadians are doing right now. If the Clippers
wait. Sorry, I totally fucked that up because they didn't even play Denver.
No, they played Utah.
They played Utah, which was the number 1 seed. Kawhi went out halfway through that series, and they still won. It was tied 2-2 when Kawhi went out.
Mm-hmm. I also think the Utah Jazz were like probably one of the more overrated than the Suns because they have their own black hole on offense, and his name's Rudy Gobert, and they didn't need Ivica Zubac or Serge Ibaka to stop him. And they didn't need anyone.
Maybe, but like you can say maybe all you want, but do they beat legitimate contenders?
Yeah. But that's exactly the point.
People saw Utah as a genuine contender. They were the number 1 seed. You can't fucking swipe that away.
Yeah, I can, because this season has the biggest asterisk in the fucking entire, the biggest asterisk of any season NBA's ever had. We had this conversation not half an hour ago. This season was a giant asterisk, and sure, the Clippers probably could have made the final without Kawhi. You can make that argument. I don't disagree with that, but in a perfect NBA where no one's injured, they don't make it past the second round. I don't think they do.
Let me post you this question, Luke, because I'll pose it to you, and it's a 2-series question. Okay. If Paul George had a co-star in the NBA that we have right now, if Paul George has a co-star that how do I put this? That is inferior to him as a player, and he's the number 1 guy. Okay. In the situation that we see now, could they make the NBA Finals? Yes.
In this season, this current asterisk season. In
the season where pretty much everything has gone the way of the Phoenix Suns or Even the Clippers.
The season that's been plagued by
favorable
injuries and outside sources.
The Asterisks. The
Asterisks. Could they make it to the NBA Finals in this? Sure. Yeah. Like, honestly, I would not.
Now answer me this. Now answer me this. When the Milwaukee Bucks, I want to say when, but if the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that I would consider to be more of a championship contender than Paul George and his co-star and the rest of the Clippers, make the finals against the Clippers, that's how does that go? Is it
if Giannis is fully healthy?
Five, maybe 6 games to Milwaukee. Yeah. If Giannis is fully healthy.
Okay.
So, all right, but then let's talk about.
I disagree with that, but
let's talk about.
You think that no, sorry.
Hang on.
You think that Paul George and fucking who the fuck were you saying earlier? Jamal Murray would beat this Bucks team with Giannis
with a healthy center?
Well, that's not the. No.
But
okay, so
yes, it is. You said if the Milwaukee Bucks get to be fully healthy, so do the Clippers.
No.
With Serge Ibaka?
I said Giannis returning. I said Giannis returning. You can have Jamal Murray. You can have Paul George. You can be out your center.
Sure.
But the reality
you
is,
said I have to be out my center.
No. Because that's the current
landscape we're in. Okay, but listen. Then Giannis isn't healthy.
Dude,
you want to hear the you want to hear the reality.
If you're saying the center of the Clippers is injured, then so is Giannis.
I don't remember any of us saying that, man.
Do you want to hear the unfortunate reality of your argument? Giannis is coming back. That's the unfortunate reality of your argument. Is Giannis is
and even if Serge Ibaka was healthy,
with you Giannis guarantee that back?
Okay, fine.
Yes,
put both of those teams fully healthy.
Can tell the future. You don't think Giannis might come back, land on his knee funny again, be out again? Because he's not fully healthy.
It's just a bunch of bullshit hypotheticals. But if you want to put both of those teams, so take the Clippers team, turn them fully healthy, give them Serge Ibaka back, take Kawhi out, put Jamal Murray there, and then
that's another good role player,
and then a fully healthy Bucks team. Do they win? Serge Ibaka does not make that big a difference. No,
because who locks up Paul George? Giannis, dude. Giannis locks the fuck out of that dude.
Giannis does not play D on Paul George.
Oh my God, does he ever? Then fine. Then Chris Middleton or Drew Holiday does, dude. They're getting locked. That team is a
Drew Holiday was a defensive player of the year candidate.
Yeah,
Drew Holiday is shorter. Paul George can shoot over Drew. If you disagree with that, you're wrong.
No, that's fine. Throw Middleton at him. Throw Giannis at him. Throw PJ Tucker at him.
Because the second that Paul George goes hunting for switches, sure, he gets Middleton, and then he gets Drew, and then he gets Giannis.
But fuck, even he gets Lopez. Even that's not a fun matchup because the dude's 7'1" and one of the better defensive centers in the NBA.
I just don't think that a team with Paul George and another guy and a healthy Serge Ibaka win that series.
And look,
I'm allowed to disagree with that though.
No, we're allowed to disagree with you.
No, I'm not saying you can't. My point is, if you guys make it seem like I'm totally wrong, Beck likes to do.
Well, we have an opinion that you are wrong.
Yeah.
We should be allowed to fucking share that.
Opinion that you're
sure,
wrong.
and I'm saying that you might be right, but
we think you're wrong.
But
Beck, you like to say you're wrong. No. That's not true.
He hasn't said that once.
He hasn't said that once.
He literally hasn't said that once. You've actually been saying, no, the reason why you're wrong is
Yeah, you said no, sorry, you're wrong. But let me then expand the scope here. And if we're just talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, let's talk about
the problem, Beck, is you always expand the scope to your point. You never expand it to anyone else's point, just your point.
But I'm expanding the scope to your argument, Brent, in that if the Clippers were completely healthy and had everyone and had Jamal Murray and Paul George and your role player, everyone is healthy, the Brooklyn Nets are making the NBA Finals. And if the Clippers somehow make the NBA Finals after defeating the Nuggets, the Lakers, the Suns, all of these teams with more talent and more arguably
plus wherever Kawhi goes, which is going to be a Western Conference team.
Yeah, exactly. Does the Los Angeles Clippers losing in probably 4 or 5 games in games that are absolute blowouts make them a championship contender? Fuck no.
I don't think
that's
so
a team.
I disagree with you though,
and that's fine. But he's just making his point. You made an argument.
I get that, and I understand that the Brooklyn Nets are the best team in the NBA. I've been saying that since the start of the season. I don't care. That's not my point. But to be a contender, you have to make at least the conference final. And I think I think Paul George could carry a team to the conference finals. I really do.
But I think that's where we're disagreeing, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but my opinion is to be a championship contender, because you can be there and you can be in the conference finals because
the Atlanta Hawks are in the conference finals.
Okay,
things go your way. But
they played the Knicks and the
2016 Raptors. Yeah,
the 76ers were the number 1 seed in the.
Did you see how? Oh, okay. So the Clippers beat the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, the Clippers don't have.
Ben Simmons played like absolute shit.
Yeah, you're right. And
Rudy Gobert played like absolute shit.
I don't even think that.
Then I'm going to bring up the argument that Embiid wasn't 100%. Because he wasn't.
Okay. I don't.
So you can say no. Ben Simmons not playing well at all. He probably had the worst playoff performance based on expectations in a long time.
Okay.
Plus, Embiid not 100% does not make up for Rudy Gobert not playing.
CP3 hasn't been 100%.
He's literally
CP3 missed 2 games due to COVID protocols.
He's not a number 1 option.
He's still their point guard. He's still the point guard.
He's literally the leader of that team.
He could be a leader only once.
Devin Booker had a broken nose, for God's sakes, and had to wear a mask.
And played like shit the game he wore the mask.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this then, since you like to bring up the fact that players were injured. If Kawhi plays, do they win?
Yes.
Because Kawhi's the number 1 guy.
Because Kawhi's the number 1 guy. And Kawhi brings that team something that Paul George does not. And you can't disagree with that.
He elevates his team on both ends of the floor.
Exactly. And then in a way that
the players that you're arguing are you've argued that LeBron, Steph, and Kawhi are better players.
Because those are the dudes that carry
teams to the
championship.
So those are the only 3 players on contending teams, correct? Those are the only 3 number 1 options? That's what you're saying.
No, it's not. If you let him fucking talk.
As of right now, those are the only 3 guys who have proven they have the ability to be number 1 guys on championship contenders. Why? Because Giannis hasn't done it. Harden hasn't done it. KD hasn't done it. Giannis is close. He's the closest we've seen.
KD was Giannis or KD are the closest.
Yeah, Giannis and KD are the closest, and it's hard to argue KD because KD went and won his titles with a guy that already had won his title for that team, and Steph Curry. That was still Steph's team.
100%. As the leader, yes, but that's the same thing as saying Paul George. Or
Steph
sorry, not
Curry
Paul
was
George.
the
Chris
number
Paul.
Steph Curry was the number 1 option on that Warriors team.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was. Oh my god.
You think Steph's a better player than KD?
I think they would not have won that championship without Steph. No, I don't think so. Dude, then they clearly already won championships without KD. My question
is, do you think Steph is a better player than KD?
I think all time right now, Steph probably ranks as a better player than KD.
Because of the 3-point shooting and the fact he's the greatest 3-point shooter of all time,
which shouldn't be overlooked, man.
No, I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm overlooking it, and I agree that Steph all time is better than KD. But my point is, as the better basketball player, who do you think's better?
I think KD because he's 7 foot and has the skills of a guard.
Thank you. Thank you. That's my point. Is that KD is a better number 1 option than Steph.
Sure, but in the instances that
I think Steph as a number 2 option would be probably a top 5 player all time.
The fact of the matter is that KD going to that team already made KD an outsider, and it was still Steph's team.
They literally called them the Golden State Warriors and Kevin Durant.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my opinion, though, Chris Paul is the leader of that Suns team, right?
Yes, I would probably say so.
So it's Chris Paul's team. Devin Booker is the best player.
I would say that he's the leader, but Devin Booker is the best player.
That's my point, is that Steph can be the leader of that team, but KD can still be the number 1 option, the best player.
But look, until we've seen Curry led a much inferior Warriors team to a title, which showed that he had the ability to elevate his team to win a championship team.
That Warrior. So honestly, if you want to argue this, Beck, do you think that the team that Steph had is better or worse than the team KD had when they went to the finals in Oklahoma?
Well, obviously, it's worse. I'm not disagreeing with you.
And Steph won, and KD didn't.
Yeah.
And that's all the proof you need right there.
And you know
but
what,
I think Steph's team
is the number one
better
option.
than KD's team in OKC.
But listen, LeBron's Miami team is better than LeBron's Cleveland team. KD's OKC team was also better than Curry's Warriors team. So that goes both. That goes Curry, dude. Think about the guys that KD fucking played with.
Prime Oladipo,
as an all-round
prime Serge Ibaka, prime Russell Westbrook, Oladipo,
Harden.
James Harden.
He didn't play with Oladipo. Just
Oladipo.
Go there. No,
Oladipo
Harden.
played on. Yeah,
he played there for a year, but it wasn't.
He played, but it wasn't. Okay. No, he played with Nick Collison, like a young. Oh my god, dude, that team was fucking loaded.
They were disgusting. Yeah, they were so disgusting that they had to get beat by LeBron. Or no, sorry, they lost. Yeah, they got beat by LeBron.
No, they won. They won, but they knocked out the Spurs of all teams. They knocked out the dynasty that was the Spurs.
Yeah,
like
an aging Spurs team, though.
Yeah,
but a team that still won in 2014.
Like 2 years prior to that.
Yeah, 2 years after. No, 2 years after.
2 years after.
When did the guys on the Spurs retire, though?
They retired in 2015.
Tim Duncan retired. Yeah, and Tim Duncan
retired. Timmy retired in 2008.
And Kawhi is still currently playing and leading teams to championships.
Tony was 2018.
And Kawhi is currently still leading teams to almost.
My point, it was to the extent of it, most of that Spurs team was at the end of their career, other than Kawhi.
They won a chip though, like
in 2014, not when they played up against
when they were older.
It wasn't a prime it wasn't a prime Spurs team that played the OKC team because the prime Spurs team would win that.
Yeah, but neither was the 2014 team. Like you make the same point.
Yeah, and OKC beat them. But that's my point.
But the point being is that the OKC team was better than the Warriors team that Steph had, and Steph won with that Warriors team.
As a team all around, though, I would personally disagree. I agree that there was more talent in OKC, but as a team, as the genetics of a team, I'd rather have that Warriors team.
Because Steph Curry's the reason they had those genetics in the first place.
Yeah,
Steph Curry created.
You can't talk like Klay Thompson, Draymond Green.
No, but Steph Curry literally created the fucking mentality there. Steph Curry created he created all of that, man. Like he's the reason for that Warriors team doing anything. The Warriors were like a joke of a franchise until Steph got there, and he changed I'm trying to think of the fucking word. He changed the fucking.
Culture.
Thank you. That's the word. He changed the culture, and like he literally turned that team around. And without Steph, that doesn't happen. And I think that attests to how hard it is to be the number one guy, and you have to be an elite player, and you have to be at the top of the elite players to be the number one guy. And I just don't think that.
Okay, so the KD argument, when you say KD couldn't do it.
Because KD
number
hasn't
two
done it. It's not to say that KD can't do it.
Okay, but his number 2 and 3 guy were out.
Okay.
He still couldn't do it with OKC, and they were both healthy. The whole team was healthy.
KD also had more than enough opportunities to win Game 7 against a team that is notoriously bad in the playoffs, and it also has one of the worst playoff offenses we've seen in a long time.
Appreciate
in the Bucks. And it's not to say the Bucks are like bad offensively, but look, it's disjointed.
They're an all around team, and they're an all around team. They're not like a mainly offensive team.
They hang their hat on their defense, and all credit to KD. KD put up ridiculous scoring numbers.
Totally.
But at the end of the day, guys elevate their team to be better than what they are in order to carry them to that championship. And KD elevated his own game, but KD did not elevate the game of his teammates.
I agree.
All right, well, we can agree to disagree on this because we're not going to meet each other in the middle. I don't like getting a screaming match it.
Yeah, we're never done. We're never done. We never. I don't think we've ever reached much of a consensus when it comes to that stuff. But
just personally, I think Paul George could do it in the right situation.
Not sure, but I don't think he can as the number one guy.
I know. I think he can as the number one guy in the right situation. I think it has to be a perfect team built around Paul George, but my point is I think he could.
And that's where and that's where it will be left.
Sure.
Okay, just give me a second. I'll leave this next one up to you guys to start. And we talked about this a little bit already, but
Yeah.
Well, so I'm gonna take a lead here, Beck. So if for those of you who aren't watching live, the next thing we're gonna talk about is should we expect Giannis to be back, and if not, what does that mean for the Milwaukee Bucks? And I think that a lot of people share the same opinion. Well, first of all, we should talk about the injury to Giannis. It's been released that there's no structural damage. His tendons are all in order. It was simply just a hyperflex. So it looked like if you watched it, it like popped out of like a like super extended
hyperextended.
Hyperextended. It hyperextended Quebec. It hyperextended like out of place and came back, but there's no structural damage and no tears in the ligaments and tendons are all fine, which means no ACL tear, nothing terrible like that. So really we don't know. There's no timeline because we don't know what's going to happen. But I think that everybody's assuming that if he doesn't come back, they can probably get past the Hawks. I could see them getting past the Hawks, but I don't know if they'll do much more than that. Beck, what do you think?
So it's more clear to me that the Bucks this year are much more adaptable to changing play styles than in past years. We've seen in previous years when their 3-point attempts weren't falling, they were losing. And they've shot an absolutely abysmal 32% from three this year. Yet you see these guys absolutely dominating the paint with or without Giannis. And we saw them combine for almost 68 points in the paint in the game. And I think and we've seen it before, and I've said it once and I'll say it again. This is far and away easily the deepest team that has ever surrounded Giannis.
I agree.
And we saw it by their ability to pick up the slack, not only in his absence, but in games where Giannis has not won the game for Milwaukee every time he's been on the floor. We have seen Chris Middleton go off for 38 points against the Hawks. We saw him absolutely cook the Hawks in a fourth quarter on his own. We've seen Drew Holiday play absolutely stellar defense on Trae Young and dish out games of almost 15 assists. We also saw last night when he averaged 22. And then we see guys like Bobby Portis coming off the bench in place of Giannis and scoring a career-high 22 points.
Yeah, literally. Is that playoff career high or career high?
No, playoff career high.
Damn, good. Yeah, I remember that.
And so my point is we've seen, look, all respect to the Atlanta Hawks and how far they've gotten, but without Trae Young, they're a mess. They're a mess.
Totally.
It's clear.
And because they weren't even supposed to go this far with Trae Young, let alone without Trae Young. What's the news on him, by the way? Is he coming back?
He is listed officially as questionable for Game 6.
So that's usually what happens in the playoffs. So let's presume that Giannis and Trae Young don't come back for the rest of the series. There is no question that the Bucks take that. No question.
I think, look, you're taking out, as good as Trae Young is, there's a hard argument to make that he's a better player than Drew Holiday, than his opposite number.
Literally.
Right?
Totally.
So what's the consensus?
The Bucks we think the Bucks can win without Giannis, regardless of Trae Young's status.
Against the Atlanta Hawks, yes, I agree.
That's what I said. I said they can. If Giannis isn't coming back, I think they'll still get out of the conference finals, but not much past that. That was the consensus.
I don't think Atlanta's a good enough team to contend.
No, especially without Trae, or with or without Trae, but especially without Trae.
The word around the NBA coming out is that Giannis could if the situation comes where there is a Game 7, Giannis could very well be given the green light to go ahead and play. So
I feel like if there's no structural damage or anything, I feel like they're just managing his pain at this point and just seeing if he can get back.
And you don't want it to get worse.
Exactly. You'd rather let the team close out one more game and let him rest and come back for the finals.
Yeah, and that's exactly it.
Because you know that he's gonna play if he's told he's allowed to play, he's gonna play. Yeah, there's no question.
He's at you're at the point where you're a complete fool if you're not playing in games like these, right?
It's the NBA finals, you play.
Yeah, and
if you can play, you play.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. If you're hurt, you play. If you're injured, you're not playing. Because it's fair to say that just about everyone at this point is playing hurt. That's the grind that the NBA season is. But
no, literally,
especially this year though, like it's just
At the end of the day, like you look at roster, and you look at like positions 1 through 5, and in every position without Giannis, like you'd imagine the Atlanta Hawks would have an advantage in one position, like in this series. Yeah, and personally, I think the biggest opponent or biggest mismatch for the Milwaukee Bucks has still been themselves. And I think
the mental aspect.
Yeah, and despite as well as they have been, and Luke and I have said it, we have not seen the chains come off the Milwaukee Bucks.
I don't think we've seen them firing at all cylinders yet.
I agree with that. I still don't think if every team's healthy, they're the best team in the NBA by any means.
No, but we've also yet to see. I don't even think it. We've seen games where Milwaukee has blown the doors off them, and we've seen more of it against Atlanta because Atlanta is an inferior opponent. But even against Brooklyn, we saw at the games where they were just congested or like they hang their hat on their defense. And frankly, it's much more. You're much more likely to win to hang your hat on defense, being that it's an effort stat, and you can control a lot more things when you play good defense.
Defense when. Like offense sells tickets, defense sells championships, or defense wins championships.
Championships, and that frankly, with the team we still have, like with the teams that are still
Bucks.
in the, it's more true than ever.
Totally.
Yeah,
and I think
there are teams that can win based on offense alone.
Not left. I don't think.
I think
not left. No. I totally agree.
Brooklyn
I'm just saying. I think Brooklyn could be that team.
Yeah. But honestly,
going to be
a hot take. But honestly, I think that let's say that Giannis doesn't come back right away. I think that Bucks team could steal a game without him, and then Giannis comes back for like game 4 or something, and they could take the series. Like I think that's fair. I think that it's possible for that Bucks team to steal 1 or 2 from Phoenix.
So, in my opinion, I don't think there's a true contender left.
I don't think there is. The Bucks were a contender from the
Bucks.
Yeah,
maybe
the Bucks have been a contender all year.
The Bucks are the most legitimate contender left. But like out of the teams that we said would win from the start, I don't think there's any of them left. We said it was either going to be the Lakers or Nets.
Yeah, but I said that if anyone was going to beat the Nets, it was going to be the Bucks, and I said that if anyone else was coming out of the East that wasn't the Nets, it was going to be the Bucks. So I still considered the Bucks a high level contender.
And I think when we talked about it right at the beginning, we talked about the Suns and we talked about the Jazz, and I mentioned it, and I made it pretty clear in my opinion that I thought the Milwaukee Bucks were a more legitimate contender than both those teams.
And I agreed with you.
Yeah, I think that's still the case. Like, if we're gonna see,
I think that Milwaukee's had a much harder road to the finals than the Hawks. I guess the Hawks were a little,
but even that,
the fact that the Nets were injured though.
Yeah, but I think that they had a harder road than the Suns did.
Yeah,
because the
injured Nets team. You don't think that the Clippers beat that injured Nets team?
I think they put up more of a fight than the Suns do.
I think the Bucks have had more adversity to overcome in these playoffs.
They've been one of the most healthy teams in the playoffs, though. Other than the fact that Giannis just got injured.
Adversity, as in like they've been projected to be good and they've lost to subpar teams.
But I don't think that's adversity. That's them not getting themselves over the hump.
Adversity is literally anything that like sets a team back.
But that's their own efforts. I don't think that's like a player getting injured and them overcoming adversity. That's them not crossing that line that everyone thinks they should have already. I get that you can think that that's adversity, and I see where you're coming from, but like adversity compared to the other teams
the
Lakers, the Clippers.
The definition of adversity is difficulties or misfortune.
Mm-hmm.
That is the definition of adversity.
The Bucks had to play the Heat in the first round. They had to go up against the Brooklyn Nets in a series that everyone wrote them off for. And then they had to go.
They should have been written off. It's just the fact that they were injured. They were a fully healthy team playing against a team. They had their top 3 options, and the Brooklyn Nets had 1 out of 3.
We just finished talking about how the Suns are only here because they played 3 straight teams missing their number 1.
I totally agree.
I'm not saying plagued with injuries.
I'm not saying I think that I said from the start I agreed that the Suns weren't. I thought Utah was more of a contender, and I still do think Utah is more of a contender than the Suns for sure. And I do think than the Milwaukee Bucks personally, and we can disagree on that all day. And neither of us are going to move. That's just my opinion. And I don't think that. I think the teams that have faced the most adversity are the teams that have lost star players. And now you can say Milwaukee's in that situation with Giannis, but up until the conference final, I don't think they're in that same boat.
They're overcoming personal adversity more than anything.
Personal adversity, sure.
But look, dude, we've seen like teams that can't get over the mental hump, and our favorite team on earth, the Toronto Maple Leafs, still can't get over that hump. And we've seen what that does to a team.
We're really it's depressed Luke night, isn't it?
Yeah. And honestly, I'm not much happier about it either, but I have to mention it because we've seen what these mental hurdles can do to teams.
Exactly. Adversity is literally any sort of misfortune or fucking.
But even the Leafs in the first round, which they lost their captain, which I think if John Tavares plays that series, they beat them.
I don't think that he impacts the game as much as you think he does.
I think he impacts the mental part of that game more than anything.
Yeah, but there's no excuse for the guy who scored the most goals in the league this year to score 1 goal in the whole series.
No, I agree with that.
And his line mates score nothing.
No, I totally agree. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. But my whole point was that your captain going out in the first round or in the first game of the first round, that hurts a team's mental state. That's adversity.
Yeah, but adversity isn't just injuries. It's literally anything. No. Adversity is literally any sort of misfortune or difficulty. It's literally anything that makes your team mental state or physical state worse.
So in my opinion, what I'm trying to get at is that how I see that is if it's self-inflicted misfortune, I don't think it's.
How is an injury not self-inflicted? You're choosing to go play. You're choosing to play not a contact sport, but a high-level professional sport. Then every game, do you step on the court, there's a possibility to get injured.
In the sense that you chose to. I'm not saying players that get injured should be able to sue the leagues because it's not their fault.
I'm not trying to say that either. But
my point is that an injury to a team is not self-inflicted. You're not self-inflicting yourself with injuries. You can't say Giannis was self-inflicted. He went up for a block and he landed.
No, but we're saying
John Tavares got a knee to the head, which was just unfortunate. That's what I'm saying. Where this isn't self-inflicted, it's just misfortune to the team.
Exactly. But the definition of adversity is misfortune, though. That's the definition of misfortune.
No, okay, I agree that that's adversity.
How can you?
My point is, it's not.
Dude,
I feel like the Milwaukee Bucks are to blame for their own misfortune, and that's not as deep as to
overcome personal shortcomings is definitely much harder to overcome than a non-self-inflicted injury. Because if you're overcoming a mental block that you've inflicted upon yourself because you don't have the belief in yourself to get something done, that's way harder to overcome than someone getting injured because that's part of life. Yes, that is way harder to overcome because every single player on that roster, in their mind, thinks we can't do this because we haven't done it before.
So the Milwaukee Bucks, without that, beat a fully healthy, without the self-inflicted misfortune, beat the Brooklyn Nets fully healthy.
No, but that's not what we're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
That's not the point we're trying to make.
If you're saying that injury isn't as big of a deal as self-inflicted misfortune.
Not what I said. What you're saying is that injury is more adversity than fucking mental blocks are, and I'm saying that that's not right. I'm saying that
not more adversity, but more control.
You're saying it's more important than adversity.
I think it is.
I don't. I think that any type of adversity is adversity. There's no more important adversity than not.
And look, if injuries are the only form of adversity that we had and mental block wasn't a thing, then the Milwaukee Bucks probably would have won a championship by now, let's be honest. But
they probably would have beat the Raptors.
That's not the truth. The truth is that despite the injury luck that they've had up until now, they've had this demon. I don't know what to call it, but they've had this
monkey on their back.
Doubt. Yeah, they've had the monkey on their back. And like I said, we've seen what it does to other teams, and it's real.
No, totally. I agree. I just don't think that this year proves that they got the monkey off their back because they're not that impressive. They beat an injured Brooklyn Nets team. They might beat a Hawks team.
At the end of the day, dude, like monkey on the back or not, or whether it's still on, they're finding ways to win, and they're winning ugly.
The Milwaukee
we can say about the Milwaukee Bucks of the past.
The Milwaukee Bucks are they're finding ways to win, and they've also made gradual steps in changing the team chemistry. They haven't had a defensive player of the year candidate that hasn't been Giannis ever. Well, and you think that Drew doesn't care?
But sure.
Well, no, I mean not okay. But like fucking in recent years.
Okay. I was just
like they've been projected to be a lot more than they have been, and this year they're finally looking like they're taking the monkey off their back. And that's adversity to overcome. Overcoming adversity is overcoming adversity. You can't say like this adversity is more detrimental to a team than this one. Like adversity is adversity, and like overcoming adversity is good no matter what. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
totally. I do agree with that. My point is that self-inflicted adversity, I don't personally think, and we can disagree on this all night. I don't think that it's as big of a deal because it's self-inflicted. I don't feel bad. I feel bad for the Brooklyn Nets because they actually had a chance at a championship if they didn't get injured. The Milwaukee Bucks, it's their mental hump. They have to get over their own adversity, their own issues, whereas the Brooklyn Nets got injured at an unfortunate time, and they can't help that. Whereas Milwaukee, it's totally under their own skin. It's their own problem. You can't expect KD to carry that team to a finals without the number 2 and 3 options.
We're not getting into that again because we're going to a screaming match. But okay, I disagree. But okay.
Okay, so that's where we'll kind of cut it off for today. We're getting a little long, unless anyone else has a point they want to make, not related. But
I'm good.
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, in saying that, I appreciate you guys coming out and watching. Obviously we do get a little heated in these arguments sometime. I think it makes for great content. I think most people will agree with me. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I'm an idiot, but
definitely the second one.
Oh, okay. Fuck you too. But at the end of the day,
what was that?
Nothing. I called Clem an idiot.
At the end of the day, I love these guys. At the end of the day, this doesn't define our friendships by any means. And this is just a podcast. It's
professional disagreements. That's all.
Exactly. That get a little bit
professional disagreements.
Professional disagreements that get a little bit overhyped, which is kind of a problem. But like, we'll address that at a later date. But I think we'll always have these until the show ends, whenever that is, whether it's in 6 months or 10 years. But at the end of the day, that's my opinion on it. That's their opinion on it. You get the true emotion behind it.
You're here. You show up to listen to us to share our opinions because you somehow think that our opinions matter. So
this is real. This is our actual opinions. We're not scripted. We're going off the fucking book.
No, if you guys are gonna show up and actually give a shit about what we have to say, I'm not gonna lie or bullshit. I'm gonna tell you what I actually think.
Yeah, we'll never be scripted.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that
100% of our wholehearted opinions coming at you.
And whether we agree or not, that's not really your problem.
Exactly.
It's just more entertainment and more disagreements for you guys. So in saying that, appreciate you guys for coming out. And don't forget to check out the other podcasts on our network, including Flyers Alley, The Dusty Buttes, and premiering on July 11th, The Rumble Fumble Live, all presented by the Old City Sports Network. Beck is going to be on the Rumble Fumble Live. I'm on the Dusty Buttes, and Luke has a college football show coming out soon. Luke, any news on that?
We're going to be debuting mid-August. It's looking like it's probably going to be called either the option or the halfback option, depending on what me and the co-host decide. But like me and Jesse and the other guy I talked about, and we like that name. And that's probably going to be premiering mid-August, and you'll probably hear more about that as time goes on. But if you're into college football, stay tuned for that. It's coming to you soon.
I can tell you, I'm super excited about that. The networks are really excited about it, and we can't wait to get these shows rolling. Hopefully, get some more shows after that out as soon as possible, as we have lost a couple of shows in the past couple months.
But none of this is possible without you guys showing up and caring about our shit. So
totally,
amen.
Share our shit everywhere,
yeah.
and we'll keep bringing content to you.
We don't want your money; we just want your attention,
which also makes us money.
Every episode.
Yeah. Just take the money you would spend on some chicks OnlyFans and keep it for yourself. Buy a 6-pack and drink that while you watch us, and that's all you gotta do.
And we'll bring you content consistently, unlike your girlfriends. All right. In saying that, cheers.
Cheers,
appreciate you guys, and I'll see you boys on cards in about 2 minutes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Take an L.